Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to race number 12 of the second season of the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series playoff race number 2, as we are here at the final D-shaped mile and a half of the season. This is the Texas Motor Speedway. I'm Seth Cole, joined as always by Scott Rankin. Scott first raced the playoffs at Phoenix last week under these drivers' belts. Some of them coming away with good finishes, others not so much. It's reset time for some of these guys here with only 4 races left.
Look, I mean, 3 races left before we get to that final cut to the floor as well. Chris Woodard had the pace last week, positioned himself well, and then as it always happens, something goes wrong. DJ Daniels, same sort of deal, positions himself well, something goes wrong. There's a lot of drivers that left us asking a lot of questions about them heading into playoffs. Is it getting in their heads? Is it under their skin? Are they driving differently? Are they reacting differently? Are they dealing with the pressure okay, Seth? Look, tonight, I think we're going to answer some of those questions, and the questions that remain to be asked, well, they're going to solve themselves as some of the drivers just run out of time to get themselves in.
8 of our playoff contenders finished inside the top 10 last week, but again, as we've kind of hammered home all season long, especially last week, it's not a win-you're-in situation. It's all based on consistency in the first 4 playoff races, and we whittle it down from 16 to 4 drivers by the time we get to the season finale at Auto Club. So drivers like Cam Caldwell, who picked up his second victory of the season last week, his job is not done just yet. Let's go down now for pre-race ceremonies, and let's begin thing with tonight's invocation, courtesy of Pastor Zach Woods.
Let us pray. Almighty God, I thank you for this time we get to share together here on iRacing. I thank you for technology that exists for us to enjoy our shared passion of racing with one another, as this draws friends from all different walks of life together. Lord, we pray for good racing tonight, racing that is clean, racing that is patient, and racing that is filled with wisdom and respect for one another. And we pray all of these things in Christ's name. Amen.
And now please join us with tonight's singing of the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and of the brave?
Qualifying nearly complete. Tell you what, Scott, Trey Whitehead has turned into quite a qualifying machine. If things hold here for these final 40 seconds or so, he will be starting the playoffs with back-to-back pole positions, and of course, coming off that third place finish last week in the first playoff race at Phoenix, jumping up to tied for 4th in the current playoff standings.
Yeah, and that's a big opportunity for him. And I mean, he's been surging late in the season. You know, you talk to a few of the drivers about who are they worried about, and Whitehead is one of those drivers that I think he's always there. Would you ever say that he is the cut above? He's that driver that you're expecting to come out and win races? You say probably not. But if something does go wrong, he's always the driver that's looking right beneath. He's going to come in, he's going to snap up your spots, and he is going to make his way to at this stage, I have him. If I was to say who are going to be my playoff four, Cam Caldwell surprised me over the last couple of weeks. Aaron Brown is just he's a lock for me, a solid lock. And the other two spots, I'm 100% not sure. I would have, if you asked me last week, I would have put Chris Woodard in there for sure. Now I'm starting to think it's probably one of the two Whiteheads, and I mean, DJ Daniels, is he going to make it in? That's the big question tonight.
And I would keep an eye on Kyle Gartner as well. He showed us last season that he's very consistent, was able to work his way up there even without a victory into the Final Four. And he right now sits 6th, only 2 points outside of that 4th and standings cut line. As a matter of fact, we show you the starting lineup for tonight's event with 29 drivers scheduled to take the green flag here this evening. Right now, as things look, the 4 playoff positions to move on to the finale are currently being held by Aaron Brown, Cam Caldwell, DJ Daniel, and there's actually a tie for the 4th position between Christopher Lawrence and Trey Whitehead. Only 2 points back, as mentioned, Kyle Gartner. Then it's 11 points back to Patrick McQuaid, 12 points back to TJ Roberts. And then a lot of drivers are either 30 or more points back, like Josh Billiter, Brock Whitehead, Zach Woods. Alexander Kerfan dropped a number of spots last week. You mentioned about Woodard dropping from the number 1 seed, now 13th in the standings. Tom Bourne struggled last week at Phoenix. He's down to 14th. Gene Cato and Noah Owens right now, I wouldn't say they're necessarily in must-win situations, but man, they really got to pick it up here with only 3 races left, as they currently sit 63 points back behind the overall points leader, Aaron Brown, and a total of 51 points behind that 4th in the standings cut line.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? It's not, it's not straightforward, bog standard and simple. It's really right now, a lot of those drivers, if they're trying to pick their way up and get their way into the playoffs, what it's got to come down to for me is you've got to maybe not focus on Aaron Brown. I think you've got to be trying to beat and focus on some of the guys that are a little bit further down. I'm looking at, Christopher Lawrence and Trey Whitehead. Those are the 2 guys that I have to beat if I'm going to get my way into the playoffs here.
Christopher Lawrence was a driver that was in the Final Four last season as well. And looking right now at the drivers that are going to be taking this green, I believe we showed you down to 27th. Scheduled to roll off 28th is going to be Jeffrey Vickery, and Dakota Knoll is going to be rolling off from the 29th position. Now, I mentioned that this is the final D-shaped mile-and-a-half track that these drivers are going to be running on this season. It's not the final mile-and-a-half track overall. We got Kentucky coming up in 2 weeks, but 2 of the previous D-shaped mile-and-a-halves that we've been at this season were, of course, at Texas, where Christopher Woodard went to victory lane, and the Charlotte Motor Speedway, where Brock Whitehead went to victory lane. So do we look at those 2 drivers as potential favorites here today, or is Texas, even though it's the same kind of configuration, is it its own animal, and we kind of just throw all those statistics out the window?
I mean, yes and no. That's really the question that we've got to ask ourselves, isn't it? Do you expect some of these guys to be coming out here and just all of a sudden blowing us away? I think some of these guys have got a really big opportunity tonight. They've got to put a lot of points back on the board. They've got to get themselves up there. Is it who I think it is that's going to be jumping forwards? Look, I can't even tell you who I think is going to be pushing their way forwards. I really just don't know right now.
We are about to continue our journey to finding out as the green flag flies here at the Texas Motor Speedway. 167 laps for these drivers here tonight. They're going to have to pace themselves. And another thing we got to kind of talk about here that Texas Motor Speedway brings to the table is the tire wear. The longer the green flag run goes on, the more we're going to know who is better on the long run and who's better on the short run.
Yeah, those tires are going to play a big factor. Overtaking here on the long run, you got to basically turn this into somewhat similar to Atlanta and maybe more like a Charlotte style of oval. The reason for that, the longer the run goes on, the much harder it is to make overtakes. It's really about conserving those tires, but as we've seen so many weeks of late, it's actually been a lot of short runs all strung together, so you've got to make sure that you know how to turn up the wicker when you can.
Saw right there going in through 1 and 2 on the second lap. Trey Whitehead right down on the bottom. Curfan and Woodard in second and third jumped up a half groove and a full groove, respectively. Is this experimentation early on, or is that just the fight to get the clean air to the nose?
I mean, clean air of the nose is very, very important. Absolutely critical for these guys early on. Experimentation, yes and no. These guys have definitely done practice running in the draft and where they really want to run. But at the same time, you've got to look for those opportunities, and that's what they're really out there looking for.
About an overtake, Cam Caldwell looking for the 4th position on Bronson Stafford. Stafford, a 2-time winner this season. Of course, not running for the championship, did not make it into the playoffs, but looking for his 3rd trip to victory lane. Caldwell looking for his 3rd as well, and for back-to-back wins to start off the playoffs. And right behind him, the 95 of Aaron Brown, who, as you mentioned, I mean, he has been absolutely consistent this year. Has been to victory lane a number of times as a result also, and certainly at least at this point, looking like a lock of one of those final 4 positions.
Yeah, I mean, Brown has just been so that's the critical factor. I was just actually scanning my eyes across the points table at this point in time. What's the difference between a lot of these guys that have been right up at the pointy end, but maybe not necessarily there right now? And what's the guys that are down lower? If you have a look at Aaron Brown, he's got a 26th finish, a 16th finish, and a 19th finish. Those are his only bad 3 from the season. Other than that, 3 wins, 2 seconds and a 3rd, you know, so he's been on the podium 6 times overall. The guy knows what he's doing, and he's having off weeks very irregularly. Whereas you have a look at Chris Woodard, and Chris Woodard just now found his worst finish of the season last week. That's not how you want to start the playoffs. It's a tale of 2 different drivers, really.
Absolutely. We've got Little Racy up here around the 2nd position. For a brief moment, we were 3 wide with Woodard, Stafford, and Curfan coming off of turn 2. They settled it out, and now Curfan is up on the top side and going the wrong way. Stafford got around him for 3rd. Now teammate Aaron Brown looking to the inside. Actually changed that because now he's got Cam Caldwell looking for his 5th position. Patrick McQuaid right back there in the 7th spot, and Chris Papa back in the field here tonight, that 13 running solidly in the 8th position.
Yeah, good job from Chris Papa. That's a phenomenal job to get himself all the way back up there. Great job by him. Really expecting something from him this race with that sort of a show of form. I want to keep my eyes a little bit deep this F. I want to keep looking for Josh Billiter, TJ Roberts, Zach Woods, and Gene Cato and Noah Owens. These guys, normally towards the lower end of the field, they've made their way into the playoffs. Is tonight the moment that they turn their season around?
One driver that is not in the field tonight, and it's a tough one too, based on the fact he just barely made his way into the playoffs in the regular season finale at Las Vegas, and that is TJ Roberts. Not in the field here tonight. Obviously will not be getting some good points here this evening.
That's it.
Yeah,
season over.
He's currently 8th in the playoff standings coming into tonight. Oh, got a car on the wall off of 4. That's the 95 of Aaron Brown.
Oh, that is not what you want to see. I mean, obviously he's got control right now. He's got a buffer of, 12 points to the cut line? So, I mean, he can afford some mistakes like this. But right now, that could be disastrous for his race. The car's going to handle differently. Everything's going to go so differently all night long for him now.
That might have checked everybody up off of turn 4, leading to that 3-wide situation off of 2 with Tom Bourne, Chris Papa, and I think Patrick McQuaid was the one that backed out of that, dropping back to the 9th position. Couple of other drivers that are back towards the rear of the field. How about the 23 of DJ Daniel? Right now mired back in 17th place. He qualified 23rd, up 6 spots, but back here in traffic, and I'll put a question mark at the end of this. Riding?
I mean, that's riding for an extended period of time. I don't know if you can, ride this early on. I wouldn't necessarily be doing it. He may be looking after his tires, maybe? I mean, if he's expecting green flag runs, I mean, that would go against the grain from what we've seen the last few weeks. You know what? In my mind, I think he's back here to be as far away from Chris Woodard as he possibly can be.
Right now, making his way by another machine. That was Joshua Billiter. Move him up to 16th. DJ Daniel is one of 3 drivers that finished in the top 10 when the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series came to this track last season. We're looking at another of them here in Christopher Lawrence. DJ Daniel finished 5th here a year ago. Lawrence finished 7th. And Zachary Woods, who currently runs back in the 16th position, he finished 10th place here 1 year ago. So you have to wonder if that prior knowledge of this racetrack, if that might help these 3 drivers later on in this event to be able to get good finishes. Obviously, pretty much for all of them, they didn't exactly have the performances they were looking for last week at Phoenix. Could certainly use Texas as an opportunity to kind of springboard their momentum back in the right direction.
100%. I mean, that's especially if they've been here, and when you say drivers, do they have experience? Where is their experience? What's it like? What reads can you take out of these drivers when they're racing at circuits like this? I mean, when you look across the field, I don't think you can say there's a single driver here who wouldn't have put laps down over previous seasons. I think every single one of our drivers is good enough, and they would have done their practice, they would have done their homework. In terms of how their homework has come through, that's the critical factor. If they've spent all of their previous Texas races running around at the back, and now they're in a playoff situation, that homework doesn't really help them. All they've got is track knowledge, fighting other people, understanding your competition, making sure that you've saved enough tire. Do they have any knowledge on how to do that? I would say by and large, 90%. No, they may have 10%. They may have that little bit of an edge. And ultimately, at this stage of the season, this is one of the races where you probably want to be prepared. This is one of the races where I think a driver really has a strong opportunity to show their wares.
One of the things I love about the playoff system that they do here in BackFire is you look at a guy like Cam Caldwell. Under a normal win-and-you're-in situation, he would be running here at Texas as aggressive as he can be, trying to do everything he can to try and find victory lane once more with that win in the bank last week at Phoenix. But because that win doesn't lock you into the Final Four and you have to rely on consistency, he can't really approach this as that type of a race. He's got to basically approach Texas the same way that he approached Phoenix last week.
Yes and no. I mean, for my mind, when you look at it that way, the thing that I am thinking about is that I would still want to be aggressive, just because of the way that the aero package works here at Texas. You want to be getting that clean air. So if he's picking off those spots nice and early, particularly if he's up the front, which he is towards the front, ultimately now things have settled down a little bit. I'm just backing off. I'm making sure I'm conserving those tires. Any aggressiveness that I put on them early, and that's the crucial factor, is that you're looking ahead. You're trying to look down the lane and you're going, okay, I can grab these 2 guys. I'm very confident I can steal 2 spots here. The rest of the spots, they're a question mark. So instead of pushing for those spots, I'm going to back it down. Caldwell could be doing that. He could be racing in that way, or he could just continue being aggressive.
Bronson Stafford do a little landscaping there in the front straightaway. Left side's down in the infield grass, and a battle that I'm not certain. Looked like it was a big block being thrown by Aaron Brown on Chris Woodard going into turn 1. That checked the 24 up. He lost the position to Chris Papa, moved the 13 up to 5th, and now drops Woodard back into the clutches of Alexander Kerfans. That's about a 3-way battle for the 6th position here through 1 and 2.
There's a lot going on right now. Jake Gimble as well just come on the radio and said, do you want the spot that bad? So somebody's really racing hard down the back end of the field as well. So, look, I mean, there's... let's talk about the mindset, in my mind, of drivers that aren't in the playoffs versus drivers that are in the playoffs. If you're in the playoffs, obviously you're hard, you're out there fighting. But the drivers that aren't in the playoffs, they're still fighting for, best of the guys that haven't made it in. They still want to go out there and see if they can nab a win when and where they can. But at the same time, do you show a little bit of extra courtesy to some of the playoff drivers? There will be a bunch of guys out there that will say, hey, I'm no longer in championship contention. I want to make sure I look after those guys with those green bumpers, with the green spoilers. I want to make sure I give them every opportunity to show their wares, to get up there and give them a shot at a championship. But there'll be a bunch of guys that are like, I don't care. I'm going to race the same I've done every week. Why would I change things now? It's, I'm not in the playoffs. I don't need to make any changes.
Yeah, I can't speak for every driver in the field, but I can tell you, in races that I've been in where I've not been in the playoffs, I've got playoff contenders around you, you want to still race those guys because you still want to get the best finish possible for yourself, but at the same time, you don't want to be the one that ends somebody else's championship hopes.
No, 100%, and that's the thing. I mean, at the end of this day, if you're a good enough driver, you won't be ending somebody's championship hopes anyway. It'll come onto that guy Generally the guys in the playoffs, they're the ones that kind of want to be a little bit more aggressive, particularly if they're running a little bit further down the field. They need to be a little bit more aggressive running down the field to get those spots back. So ultimately, generally, it's going to come down to those guys. But just remember, you may cop a little bit of extra flack if you get involved with one of them with the championship on the line, you know.
Riding on board with Alexander Kerfan, you can see how aggressive Christopher Woodard in that 24 is being. He drove it deep there on Chris Papa into turn 1 the last time by and almost slid up into him, had to back off. Looks like for the time being that outside line's able to hold its own. Cars seem to be getting tight now as they use that inside line. Obviously, I would think attributed to the tire heat building in the right front. A couple of drivers that I've noticed here, 22 laps in, long green flag run. We talked about the comers and goers, the longer a run goes on, that are picking up spots. DJ Daniel up 11 spots, 13 spots picked up for Dakota Knoll. But one name that I noticed that dropped like a stone here since the start of this race is Kyle Gartner. All by his lonesome, back in the 28th position, dropping 16 spots from his 12th starting position.
I'm wondering whether or not something's happened to him, because that doesn't seem right. I'm gonna take a quick look through his lap shots and just see if he's not fallen off somewhere. So I'll be back with you in a moment, sir.
Yeah, hard to tell. He might have some damage on that right front, but I'm not 100% certain. So he may have gotten the wall. We've already seen a couple of drivers hit the wall here early on, including the 95 of Aaron Brown, and mentioned the two guys that have been picking up spots. Matthew Fleming in the 4, DJ Daniel in the 23. Those two in a pretty spirited battle here, along with the 9 of Christopher Lawrence. This is around the 11th position.
So whatever happened to him, to Kyle Gartner, happened in the opening phase of the race. I've just looked back, his first lap was a 44.9, so I'm thinking whatever's happened, it's happened there, because the leaders did a 36.8. So yeah, it was definitely on the opening lap of the race, whatever it was.
One thing we have to remember with Texas Motor Speedway is this track definitely played its part in the playoffs last season. I remember back, you mentioned Jay Gimbel in the field here running the 15th position. He spent a good portion of this race one season ago out in front before getting bit with pit road strategy and actually ended up wrecking on the back straightaway, finishing that race in the garage area. And I also remember Brock Salvati, who won our Daytona race in the season opener. He was in the field that season and was running top 5 most of the day. Hit midway through the race, the engine let go on that machine. So right now, while it seems like a lot of these guys are not in harm's way, Texas Motor Speedway is one of those mile-and-a-halfs that can get you when you least expect it.
Yeah, have a look at the fighting that's coming up at the front right now. Have a look at Aaron Brown trying to put his stamp on. He's blocking quite aggressively on Chris Papa. Papa's trying to find his way. Sorry, that was Cam Caldwell, not Chris Papa. Cam Caldwell's made his way a long way forwards as well.
Caldwell currently running in the 10th position. Patrick McQuaid just up ahead of him. There's some guys that I mentioned that are trying to look for some redemption from Phoenix last week. On the flip side, there's a bunch of guys that had really good runs and are trying to keep those good runs going. Caldwell with the victory last week. Aaron Brown was second. Man, that 24 drives is so deep there into turn 1. That time he almost got Kerfan in the 99. Whoa, Papa! I don't know if he hit the wall or if he was trying to block the 31, but he ran Brock Whitehead down to the lower group there on the back straightaway.
My apologies. I was actually watching a replay from very early on in the race. I wasn't actually looking at live feed. So when I said Caldwell was doing a great job, I wasn't actually talking about that stage. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting time period right now. Think back last week. You've got the teammates running side by side at this point in time. The 24 and the 23. Christopher Woodard, DJ Daniels. There is beef. There is major beef because DJ Daniels effectively ended Woodard's race last week, or at least any shot at picking up a whole bunch of spots last week after Woodard finally came down and used that fast repair, and he just sent him into the wall after a caution flag had flown. There was no reason for it. So Woodard is he's gone from leading the playoffs to 13th. I mean, the guy clearly isn't happy with what happened to him. But have a look at DJ Daniels. It seems that sitting back, watching, and letting things happen around him, strategy's paying off.
Definitely is. Now up into the top 10 and all over the back bumper of last week's winner, Cam Caldwell. That would be the battle for 8th place. Alexander Kerfan trying to get around Chris Papa, who might have brushed the wall off of 4 a couple of laps ago. It was really close as he was in that battle with Brock Whitehead. Whitehead has now moved his way up into that 5th position, and keep an eye on him because, as mentioned, He has a 1.5-mile victory this season at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and maybe trying to go 2 for 3 at the D-shaped configured tracks this season. Now actually getting a nice run down the back straightaway. He's on the back bumper of Aaron Brown. That's for 4th.
Yeah, that's going to be a big fight. Something to keep your eyes on as well, because Aaron Brown, Brock Whitehead, that's going to be a fight that's interesting to our playoff contentions, because if you think about it, Brock Whitehead's all the way back in 10th, 34 spots behind the leader. And in terms of playoff contentions, he's 22 out of it. So anytime that he can grab himself a gap to his brother and Trey and Christopher Lawrence, that's a huge night for him. Big points on offer here. So that's why he's trying to put his stamp of approval on. DJ Daniels, man, the guy's looking after those tires so far back in the race. And the other side of the coin, Tom Bourne. He's made his way from 11th up to 2nd. He's hunting down our leader. I see smoke on the front stretch too.
Not sure who that would have been.
Yeah,
You
me
saw that
neither.
saw the orange car up there on the top side. That's Joe David in the 83. He's gone a lap down, and we just focused moments ago on Kyle Gartner. He's gone a lap down as well. The top 3 have made their way around him, so early issues there for the 49, who came into this race 6th in the current playoffs. As this battle, it's just a whole wad of cars from about 6th place on back. Papa, Kerfan, Caldwell, DJ Daniel, Christopher Lawrence in this mix. Now add in Patrick McQuaid, Matthew Fleming, and soon we'll be adding in the 35 of Wesley Fuller, who actually had some really good lap times in practice.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at Kyle Gartner and saying, I think you got to pit, man. I think you got to come down. This is a risky call. Right now, he's losing a lot of time. So in my mind, what he needs to do is come down, take the fast repair, get a fresh set of tires, go for a massive undercut, make up as much time as he possibly can, and look after those tires on this next stint. Even though you're going for the undercut, you're going to naturally be faster. If you come down pit road and you look after those tires, as we've seen DJ Daniels do on this run, you're going to make a lot of time back up, and you're not necessarily going to fall off the pace as massively as you think you are. Lap time's 32.951 for Gartner the last time by. His best is a 30.9, so he's losing 2 seconds a lap. That's a massive margin that he can potentially start to reel back in if he pits now and minimizes the bleeding.
A big save there by Christopher Lawrence off of turn 4 that last time, and you know, we're talking a lot about that right front tire. What about the rear tires for these guys? That rear grip on corner exit, how that's going to be going away the longer the run goes on.
Not as much as you think. Right front 1 and 2 is the big kicker. Through 3 and 4, the rear of the car, especially on corner exit, does want to over-rotate quite aggressively. So yes, on corner exit through 3 and 4, a little bit, but the big issue is definitely that right front. And for me, if Christopher Lawrence is transitioning some of that wear and sliding around that rear tire, that's actually better for his car in the long run.
You see from the back of Chris Papa, the 49 of Kyle Gartner getting passed by that big wad of race cars. Looks like DJ Daniels going to clear that group. It's now Patrick McQuaid and Alexander Kerfan to battle for 8th place. Further up towards the front, teammates out of Sky Motorsports, Tom Bourne and Bronson Stafford, they've been about 2-3 car length separation the last couple of laps. Doesn't look like really Stafford's looking to put the charge on Tom Bourne right now, but the two of them in tandem are trying to chase down Trey Whitehead, who has opened up over 2 seconds back to the 2nd place battle.
I wonder if early on in the run, Whitehead wasn't just trying to be a little bit conservative with the tires, and anytime somebody started to put a run together on him, he'd rev it back up again, pick that pace back up, and then the instant that run gets shut down, he'd just sort of back things back off again, look after those tires. Could be running that way. Through 1 and 2, Whitehead isn't necessarily making a lot of ground. It's down in 3 and 4 that he's making all of his ground on everyone else at this point.
Another driver I think we got to keep our eye on that seems to have a very good car on the long run, although it may not seem like it since he's pretty far down the running order, and that's Matthew Rodriguez in the 57. He just now moved to the 22nd position. The reason that's significant, he didn't take the green flag. He started this race from pit road. He's been able to pass a total of, I believe, I'm sorry. I thought he started from pit road, but apparently he did not. No, he did start from pit road. He was scheduled to roll off from the 17th position, but he did start from pit road. So theoretically, he has picked up now about 9 positions since the drop of the green flag.
I mean, Jeffrey Vickery's entered into the server, so he hasn't actually taken the green flag. So it was 28 drivers that started, obviously 27 from the track at the start of things. So yeah, I mean, to come through that far, that's a big haul. That's a big ask for Matthew Rodriguez, and a big shout out to him as well. He actually has COVID, so he's doing a phenomenal job. He is really under the weather. He is really not feeling well at all. So he's doing a phenomenal job to not only be out here and racing and supporting his Sky Motorsports teammates, but racing well and picking up spots. That's a huge achievement for him.
All of a sudden, we're starting to see some drivers falling off outside of the top 10. Cam Caldwell has dropped to 13th. Christopher Woodard has dropped down to the 14th position. Both those drivers going the wrong direction. Matthew Fleming continuing to pick up spots. He's about to take the 10th spot away from Kerfan, who appears to now be headed in the wrong direction. 40 laps down here when Trey Whitehead crosses the start-finish line. Time to maybe start thinking about pit road for these guys. And where would you place the pit road at Texas Motor Speedway in terms of difficulty on the scale, Scott?
I mean, you're coming off a pretty high-speed corner, a lot of banking, and then all of a sudden you're going to get it loaded up. And it's particularly where the entry to pit road is off of 3 and 4. It's definitely up there because the car does not want to go all the way to the bottom of that track, especially now that we're on 40-lap old tires. You can see the driver's really struggling with that right front. So to actually get the car woed up and turn into pit lane is difficult. There's a lot of time that can be gained and lost there. You've actually got to start backing it down halfway through the corner. You can't just drive off before and then jump on the brakes and make it. You'll speeding penalty or miss the lane completely every single time. So yeah, it's right up there. And the other factor is drivers around you managing that. And I think Zachary Woods is actually the first driver to pit.
He would actually be the second. The first one was actually the 99 of Alexander Kerfan, who kind of right on cue when we were talking about pit stops. He dove that machine onto pit lane to get some fresh tires. So we'll keep an eye on him. He pitted from the 10th position, and here comes our race leader in, Trey Whitehead from the lead.
Yeah. Good call, good call. I'm a little bit worried about Kyle Gartner because if you look at him, remember what I said? He needed to, I think, potentially come down for the undercut. Gartner's only 2 seconds ahead, now he's in. So he's missed a huge opportunity there to play himself back into contention early on by doing an alternative strategy. And when you're in one of these positions, you can't let an injured, a damaged, a bleeding car just continue to run you out of the playoff contention. I think if this race goes green the whole way, that's it. I think his top 4 spot and contention's over.
That was the 34 of Mike Sibanovsky on the apron headed for pit road. Tom Bourne taking the race lead over, and I think I saw Brock Whitehead in the 31 possibly overshoot his pit stall, have to back that thing up. That's going to cost him, obviously, a bit of track time when things cycle around. And with those tires all heated up and you go onto those concrete pit stalls, that's something drivers going to have to be aware of as well, just how slick that is.
Yeah, it's massive, I mean, in terms of things. And I'm just taking a quick look through the field now. Tom Bourne, he's still out there with teammate Bronson Stafford as well. And, I mean, his best lap time in 29.9, he's now running 31.9 last time by. So 2 seconds, 2 and a bit seconds seems to be the tire fall-off. They're looking to run long because the tires have been so crucial and they've stretched their margin out over everyone else. There was a 2-second margin, so they had the ability to run very, very long there and not have it impact them. Additionally, this is going to benefit Tom Bourne towards the tail end of the race as we actually see Stafford pit.
From the second position, other drivers around are coming down, including Gene Cato, Nick Biddy is in, Mike Corvo, Clifford Corvo. A number of drivers on pit road the lap before, including Patrick McQuaid, Chris Papa, Matthew Fleming, Christopher Woodard, Dakota Knoll, and Noah Owens. And here come another gaggle of machines, led by Cam Caldwell. Jay Gimbel is in, along with Matthew Rodriguez. So only about 5 drivers left to complete this cycle of green flag pit stops.
Yep, and Bourne's in as well. I'm pretty sure DJ Daniels has got another... Daniels has gone a massive amount of time. This must have been in his mind from the get-go when he was laying back there that he was going to go very, very long on this first stop. He was going to look to extend as long as he possibly can. So the 4 drivers currently who have not come down pit lane, DJ Daniel, Wesley Fuller, Josh Billiter, and David Motorsport. So it'll be interesting to see where those guys come down pit road and how long they're expecting to go. And with this pit stop now, a lot of these drivers... 40 laps is basically the distance that you're looking to go to split this race into quarters, if you will. And then there was a 7-lap sort of shortfall. Tom Bourne, with a pit stop on lap 47, has now knocked that out. So the remaining pit stops for him are 40 laps only.
Looks like Alexander Kerfan will be moving into the second position when everything cycles around. Of course, the first one to hit pit lane to start this cycle, so... Gotta bet that's something that drivers will be keeping tabs on and keeping in the back of their minds if we end up having another round of green flag pit
Daniels
stops.
is in.
Yep, he's going to come down pit road from the race. Well, actually, I think he was on pit road the lap before. Wesley Fuller still out there in the 35 car. Josh Billiter in second. I think he's now slowing to come down pit lane this time by. David Modesbaugh, the other driver. Interesting that Wesley Fuller, a non-playoff contender, is one of the drivers trying to stretch it the furthest as possible. You mentioned it about the fact that even the non-playoff drivers want to take that checkered flag and are willing to go outside the box in terms of strategy.
Yeah, I mean, you're a long way back. The other sort of thing from Wesley Fuller is that if he's been able to save a little bit of fuel, if he can extend another 5 laps here, he's only going to find 2 laps worth of fuel on each extra run to the end here, and then all of a sudden he can go he can cut 1 extra stop out of here. So, but he just called out on the radio he's coming down, which is unfortunate. That means he's not going to be able to make it in terms of fuel. It's not possible. It is guaranteed 3-stop strategy here.
David Modesbaugh is coming down pit road as well. This will turn the race lead eventually back over to our pole sitter, Trey Whitehead. And yeah, in the case there of Wesley Fuller, even if he was able to stretch it to have it be just a 2-stop race, he was losing 2 to 2.5 seconds per lap to the rest of the drivers out there on the fresh tires.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because you want to come down as late as possible. In the early phases of the race, I think you have to extend, because we've seen a few times this season that the issue has been for a lot of the drivers is that they pit, and then the caution comes out in the middle of green flag pit stop. So I think generally accepted best strategy for the early phases of the race is extend as long as possible. The instant that you know that you're going to get green flag running, okay, that's when you can start to vary your strategy. And I think that's the reason we've seen a lot of cars like opt for different strategies here.
Whoa, near contact for the 4th position. Tom Bourne trying to get around Brock Whitehead, and they nearly made contact a couple of times as now Whitehead pulls right behind the back bumper of the 54. Aaron Brown, Christopher Lawrence in this mix as well, so a 4-way battle for the 4th position.
Yeah, the issue here is that Tom Bourne's just got the massive tire overlap on these guys, right? So he is just going to be absolutely reaming them for time. Utterly. Now, he doesn't want to aggressively burn off those tires here. He wants to save that because he wants to extend this margin that he's got over the entire field, basically all of the top 10, for as long as he possibly can. The only driver that went longer that's in and around that 10 mark is DJ Daniels, and he's right now back in 12th, almost 10 seconds adrift of Tom Bourne. So ultimately, in Tom Bourne's mind, that guy's completely and utterly out of contention. So what you're trying to do is extend the margins that you've got over everybody else as long as possible, and there's an option towards the tail end of this stint that he can actually reel in Trey Whitehead and go for him. I think he'll get a lot of support from his teammate Bronson Stafford up there as well.
Keep an eye there on the top left of your screen at the top 2 as far as the interval. Stafford just got around Alexander Kerfan, and he has 3 lap fresher tires than Trey Whitehead. He's already cut down to less than 6 seconds between himself and the 33. We'll see what he can do here, and maybe trying to get up there, get to the front, and maybe pick up his 3rd win on the season, already with victories at Michigan and Las Vegas this season. Bronson Stafford, actually the only driver not in the playoffs that has gone to victory lane this season so far.
Yeah, it's been unfortunate for Stafford. I just don't think he's been available for a lot of the races, which has been, that's just how it is sometimes. I was taking a look at the points. I mean, 4 starts, 2 wins, that's a phenomenal record. And, look, I mean, he's deserves, in my mind, to be here wholeheartedly. It's just unfortunate, that he hasn't been able to attend as many races as he has, and in my mind, it would be a phenomenal opportunity to see Stafford win again here today and just say, hey, look, I deserve to be here. I deserve to be in these playoffs. Additionally, that takes points away from Trey Whitehead, which, that bunches the rest of the field up. So I think the reason that he's out there and he's going to try and do that is it plays into his teammate Tom Bourne's hands.
And speaking of Tom Bourne, he's now going to catch the 99 of Alexander Kerfan. Maybe no contest here. The fresher Goodyear's on that Toyota, and he will easily move on by and back up into a podium position. After our first round of green flag pit stops, we have 27 drivers still on the racetrack, 16 of them currently on the lead lap. We do have one driver that is officially retired from the race, and that is the 81 of Jay Gimbel. Little update on where all your playoff drivers are running. Trey Whitehead leads the way. Tom Bourne's in 3rd. Alexander Kerfan 4th. Brock Whitehead in 5th. Aaron Brown 6th. Christopher Lawrence 7th. 8th for Patrick McQuaid, and 9th for Chris Woodard. So all those drivers right now up inside of the top 10. DJ Daniel back in 12th. Cam Caldwell in 13th. Zachary Woods right now last car. Well, I was going to say last car in the lead lap. He is now the first car 1 lap down in 16th. Joshua Billiter also a lap down in 18th. 19th, 1 lap down is Noah Owens. And I believe
then
Kyle
22nd.
Gartner, is the last playoff contender running. He is 1 lap down in the 22nd position. So for a couple of those guys, I don't know if it's necessarily time to hit the panic button, but if you look at guys especially like
There it
Zach
is.
Woods and Noah Owens, they cannot afford back-to-back races outside of the top 20.
Gardner's got a little bit of leeway given how high up he is in the standings, but it's not a lot of leeway. It's not a 20-second kind of leeway. The issue I see with the playoffs so far is I think if you take a look at Chris Woodard and you take a look at Kyle Gartner, they're very, very good examples. If Gartner grabs a 20-second finish today, based on the strength of the field and the way that these guys have been performing, I want to put a line through him, to be perfectly honest with you. I think one finish outside of the top 20 is more than enough to say that's it, it's done, your playoff hopes are over. And if that's true, we'll put a line through Chris Woodard as well. He's got that benefit that last week he was in first place, so the loss wasn't as massive as it could have been. But could you imagine if he didn't have that, man? We'd be looking at him, he'd be 50 points down, that'd be over.
We talked about how a lot of drivers are pretty far back from the top 4, we'll actually call it the top 5 in the current playoff standings, but if you look at those remaining drivers, those remaining 11, they were all separated by 40 points. So does that maybe give guys like Woodard, Tom Bourne, Alexander Kerfan, who are putting together good runs right now to be able to mount enough of a comeback to still be competitive when we get to Iowa next week and Kentucky in 2 weeks' time?
The issue is coming to Iowa. I just remember last season's race at Iowa and how caution-filled it was, and that to me is the nature of Iowa. That's just what we're expecting from a short track race at Iowa's specific set of circumstances. I think next week is probably the biggest question mark over any of the playoff races. I think in terms of things, the results at Iowa, I don't think anyone can go to Iowa and say, I'm definitely going to win this one, I'm definitely going to have a great finish here. I think a lot of drivers will be very, very concerned heading in next week. So ultimately, I think the playoffs start to shake themselves out at the end of next week and we start to see things. But yeah, for me, Woodard isn't putting together enough of a strong finish here to keep himself in contention. If he finishes, where is he, 11th as he is now, that's it. I don't think there is a mathematical possibility he's back in it.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about we would be able to see the driver's strengths on the short run and the strengths on the long run. I think safe to say with what we've seen so far, Chris Woodard would fall into the short run category. Very good on the fresh tires, but just cannot seem to keep the speed up the longer the run goes on. And right now in front of him, you got DJ Daniel, Matthew Fleming. They're battling for the 9th and 10th positions.
Well, I mean, let's have a look at when he pitted in relation to everyone. He pit with the whole cluster of drivers that he's around. He pit with most of these guys on lap 44. So he was towards the tail end of the pit cycle, but it was basically at the same time as everyone else. In my mind, as a driver, when you're in that sort of position, you have to create an offset, and it has to be some sort of aggressive offset, which is what Alexander Kerfan did. Woodard is definitely stronging on the longer run pace, which is curious to me because in my mind he's generally been one of the better drivers on the long run pace. So I know I was talking to him before the start of the race and he said, I'm going with a really big offset here. I think it helps me on the tire wear. Well, he's going to have to go back with Jerome with that one.
Heading on board here with the 24. Looking just ahead at spots inside of the top 10. Matthew Fleming in the 4, and there on the top side I believe is a lap machine. That's the 88 of Noah Owens. Next car up would be the 23 of DJ Daniel. Good job by all of these guys.
Simonovsky there as well too.
That's the 34 there on that inside line.
Yeah.
You are correct. Great job by these guys. First round of green flag pit stops, and it looks like nobody got hit by the speeding police. But I mean, the later we get into this race, as you mentioned, 2 more pit stops in the future of these guys. I mean, how much is there a little voice in the back of your head saying, maybe you can get a little bit more. Maybe you can get just a little bit more there on pit road. Gain yourself a little bit more track position, and then next thing you know, you're being called for speeding.
It depends. Guys that are at risk, guys that are on their last legs, and they need a strong finish here tonight. Again, it's so easy to talk about Chris Woodard because he's the real story of the playoffs for me. He has to push. He has to be aggressive. He has to find time everywhere. And for him, unfortunately, he's going to have to risk that pit road entry. Whereas if you have a look at the guys that are up in front here, Trey Whitehead, no risk on pit road from him. He's going to run really quick, really clean, really consistent. A second place finish here tonight is more than enough, I would say, to just about stamp his way into the playoffs here. So he's not going to be looking for a high risk run. Bronson Stafford, sorry, not Bronson Stafford, Tom Bourne. Bourne will probably take a little bit more risk because that win means a lot more to his night, to his championship implications, to everything as a whole. So I think in terms of things, Tom Bourne is probably one of the drivers going to take a lot of risk because he's a long way down that leaderboard in playoff contention.
Interesting thing that kind of just jumped out at me moments ago is the fact that only 2 of our playoff contenders have finished inside the top 10 in both of our previous D-shaped mile-and-a-half races. Christopher Woodard was one of them. Right now, he's struggling in the 11th position. The other one, the guy you just talked about, Tom Bourne.
Yeah, oh man, Bourne's, he's got a lot to do in front of him, doesn't he? I mean, currently sitting 41 points back from our leader, and what's that, 29 points back from the cutoff line? And one of the drivers that he needs to beat is actually one of the few drivers that's ahead of him here tonight, and that's Trey Whitehead. The issue with having 2 drivers sitting equal on that cut line is even if you beat one of them, you have to beat both of them to be gaining time back here. Now, the benefit here is he's got Aaron Brown, Cam Caldwell, DJ Daniel all in the rearview mirror, and DJ Daniels is only 3 points above that cut line, but he's been so good on the longer runs here that I'm a little bit worried that even this finish for Tom Bourne's not going to necessarily be enough. And with that question mark race next week at Iowa, that's concerning for Tom Bourne's championship hopes here.
Definitely. It's a track I think you go into and you have no idea what's going to happen. It's kind of wait till the dust settles and see where the pieces fall. As DJ Daniel, Christopher Lawrence, they just exchanged the 8th position. Daniel up that spot. Lawrence now back into, well, it was the 9th position. Matthew Fleming going to pick up that spot now and drop the 9 back to the last spot inside of the top 10. Now bear in mind that Christopher Lawrence is that other driver that came into this race tied with the 4th and final position in the standings of moving on to the season finale with Trey Whitehead. Right now he's back in that 10th spot, so an opportunity for Tom Bourne to gain some ground on him. Woodard, who was just ahead of him in points, back there in the 11th spot. There's another couple of drivers that were ahead of him in the standings that are struggling a bit here tonight as well. Joshua Bilter is quite a ways back. Patrick McQuaid back in the latter half of the top 10. Kyle Gartner, we've already documented him, and TJ Roberts not in the field. So, not necessarily saying that Tom Bourne finishing up inside the top 3 is going to move him into a Final 4 position here tonight, but certainly going to give him a nice springboard after the hard luck he had last week at Phoenix.
Okay, so yeah, and look, let's start picking through that playoff list and let's look at a bunch of the drivers. Let's start putting lines through a few of these guys. Gene Cato, I'm sorry, buddy, but you're done. Noah Owens. You get the Rankin line through as well. TJ Roberts, it's good to see you out there in Twitch in YouTube chat land, my friend. Unfortunately, buddy, no finish, no show here tonight. That's gonna put a line through him. So there's 3 drivers. We're down now to 13 drivers left over. Chris Woodard, I've got my pencil hovered above his name. I'm ready to strike my way through it, but it's not quite there yet. It's one of those cases of if he can recover, and we're not even halfway through this race yet. He's got the opportunity. Patrick McQuaid had such a good finish last week. He's in contention. In terms of things, Patrick McQuaid might be a dark horse to make that top 4. If anyone's going to be a dark horse, it's probably McQuaid, and I really want to see him do it too because it would be such a good story. Zach Woods in 18th, yeah, that's done. So what do we? We're down to 12 now, effectively. So Owens, Cato, Woods, TJ Roberts, Josh Billiser as well. I'm ready to put a line through. So we're down to 11. So there's only 11 drivers that can feasibly make it in. And for my mind, this is enough from Aaron Brown to basically lock him in. But it's the same thing. The pencil's there ready to tick him off, but it's not quite enough just yet.
That's interesting too, because we know what a crapshoot based off of last season Iowa may possibly be for these drivers. And you talk about Patrick McQuaid. Well, that's a driver that maybe could go into Iowa with a little bit of confidence, because last year he partook in that Iowa race, started 7th, finished 8th. So, if he's able to get a top 5 last week at Phoenix, top 10 here this week, and then finish up inside the top 10 next week as well, could be one of those guys sitting pretty to get a Final Four spot when we eventually get to Kentucky.
And for my mind as well, Seth, it's like we've got clusters of drivers, right? So we've got a cluster at the top. That top 4, top 5 is really, really close. And then there's a gap. And then there's a cluster of another 5 drivers in terms of point standings, or within, 10 points of each other. So, look, I mean, it's difficult, but the problem where those sort of gaps are is at the critical point. It's 5th position. It's 6th position, which is where Kyle Gartner is, and everyone above that is definitely in with a huge shot. And all of a sudden, after this week, Gartner's going to drop out of that, so it's back to 5. Christopher Lawrence, he's going to be really putting into him. So after this week, if we say things finish as they are, the top 4 drivers next week is going to be Brown, Caldwell, Daniels, and Trey Whitehead. So there's a lot of shifting and shuffling around, and Christopher Lawrence is going to need a strong finish next week. That's the guy I'm probably looking at who needs to come out and really shake up this field next week.
I'm going to be keeping my eye on that 99 of Alexander Kerfan, because he was the first one to hit pit road during the first cycle of green flag pit stops, and that was on lap 42. He is 38 laps into his run now, so we are right on the horizon of these drivers having to start making preparations to come back down pit lane once more.
I'm just wondering, does Tom Bourne come with an aggressive undercut strategy on this pit stop and look... If you're going to run long, it's probably this stop where you want to run long, and Tom Bourne's one of the guys that did run long on that first stop, so ultimately he's on fresher sets of tires right about now. So he would probably be looking to extend. After he extended the first sort of stop, you don't want to really short pit come down early for the second stop. You kind of want to just keep it a little bit even. And remember, his stops are going to be 40 laps in length. So from here, I'm expecting him to come in on 87. We're right on that marker right about now. So I'm expecting most of the field to come down about 87, 88. Does Bourne come down a fraction later and go for that extend once again? I think Trey Whitehead, you're going to see him stay out a long period of time here, because he's looking good. He's really comfortable right now, and I think if he comes down earlier than just about everyone else, I think he throws away a lot of that advantage.
Fan now catching Brock Whitehead the lap before, not this lap, but the lap prior. Tom Bourne and Brock Whitehead were the only 2 drivers that ran in the 31.6s. Everybody else ran in the 31.8s to the low 32s, so those 2 right now look like they've got some very good long run speed. Tom Bourne, though, then the following lap got into the draft of Bronson Stafford. Brock Whitehead, you see, in the draft of the slower David Modespa, so their lap time started tapering off a lot more than the 31.6s they were running just prior to that. So obviously that affecting their lap times, but they've got some pretty fast hot rods on the long run. So I kind of agree with your strategy there, especially on that 54 of Tom Bourne. Maybe stay out a little bit longer here and try and do the undercut on the final pit stop. DJ Daniel, Matthew Fleming, these 2 guys, they probably passed the most cars here tonight since we started this race, and now they can't seem to get away from each other. They're either battling for 10th, they're battling for 9th, right now they're battling for 7th. They just seem to be in the same zip code as each other.
And the critical factor as well is have a look at Matt Rodriguez. He's up to 15th, and he's still on the lead lap as well. And there's a fair margin from him back to our leader in Trey Whitehead, so he's doing a phenomenal job. And for a COVID-affected driver, starts it from pit lane and manages to maintain pace on the lead lap the whole. I'm a little bit disappointed that he didn't start with the field, because then he may have been in contention tonight for potentially a top 5, which that would have been awesome to see from Matt Rod.
Well, put this in perspective. Matthew Rodriguez, when everything cycled around, was only running about 6-7 car lengths ahead of Trey Whitehead. He was in danger of
He's
going a
background.
lap down. Yeah, he has pulled away from the race leaders, so that just shows the speed that's in that 57 car. And here we go. Chris Woodard, Christopher Lawrence going to be the first on pit road, and you see the smoke there. 24 locked up the tires on pit road entry.
Interesting to see if he gets a black flag here. Again, if this is a black flag, he gets a speeding on pit road penalty, it's over. He's done. So,
Josh Billiter in the 25, also on pit lane. See if anybody else is going to dive onto pit road this next time by as Bronson Stafford. Remember we mentioned about 6 seconds between himself and Trey Whitehead when he took the second spot early on in this run. He's managed to cut it down to 3.7 seconds here on the eve of the second round of pit stops, and looks like nobody at least up inside of the top 10 coming to pit road. First one from the lead group, 13th place Chris Papa going to come down this time, and he's going to have pit road all to himself.
be interesting to see how Chris Papa comes out and how this works in his favor here. Laps, we're at 87 now, so it is 40-40 to the end of the race from here, so this will be interesting. Whitehead just come on the radio, said he's pitting in. What does Bourne and Stafford do? Because I get the feeling that if you were to equalize the tires and everything, now that the draft has sort of settled itself out a little bit, I get the feeling Tom Bourne, Bronson Stafford might actually be quicker now than Trey Whitehead. That track has really changed its condition.
And a bit of smoke there from the 33 of race leader Trey Whitehead, trying to get that thing woed down to pit road speed. Kyle Gartner and Noah Owens, lap down machines on pit road this time also. And here come a whole slew of machines. Alexander Kerfan, Brock Whitehead, Matthew Fleming, Patrick McQuaid all down pit lane.
A bunch of Corvos in. Bourne and Stafford go another lap. Both of them going together.
Aaron
So they're going to
Brown.
short pit these last two stops. This is really interesting.
Aaron Brown's going to stay out. DJ Daniel going to stay out. Wesley Fuller staying out. Daniel and Fuller were two of the drivers that spent the longest time on track during the first round of green flag pit stops. Looks like we've got about 8 drivers that we're waiting on here. Well, correction, 10 drivers, including some lap machines. Mike Sabanovsky, David Modespa. They're still yet to come down pit lane as well.
Interesting. DJ Daniels still out. So we've got 16, 54, 95, 23, 35, 12, and 57. None of those guys have pitted. First car to pits, Trey Whitehead. He's at 8 right now, 95. So Aaron Brown's coming down pit lane this time by. Gene Cato's still yet to pit. Whole bunch of guys. Just watch that lap chart, the driver's chart, the timing tell. Just watch it shuffle itself right now.
Got the 95 of Aaron Brown. Let's watch the approach, trying to get onto pit lane by the 3-time winner. Jay Daniel going to go around his outside. Very smooth there. Doesn't lock up the rear tires, getting down to the commitment line, and now he'll head down to the attention of his pit crew. Looks like Gene Cato in the 2 also down this time, and Bronson Stafford was actually on pit road just ahead of him also. Well, okay. Thank heavens for gap whack there, or whatever you want to call it, because I think that was the 34 of Mike Simonofsky coming out of his stall, and going right through him was the 95 of Aaron Brown.
Yeah, so that's pit road phasing. So there is a distance within your pit stall whereby you will cease to be a collidable object, and you can drive through other cars. So that was because Aaron Brown was really close to his pit stall, because they don't want cars to be impacted by other cars. At the end of the day, what we've got to remember is when we come to iRacing is by and large, you're going to say 99% of your drivers on iRacing. In fact, it's probably even more than that. It's like 99.89% of your drivers don't actually race in real life. 31's around! Big contact! Whitehead just saved it. He just saved it. There was contact with the 85 machine. Who was that?
Be Nick Biddy.
That's huge. If that had caused a caution, you know who would have won? Those guys up front would have really run. DJ Daniels, Wesley Fuller, those guys, and Tom Bourne. Tom Bourne came to pit road last time by.
Let's see if we can go back and take a look at what happened there. Trey Whitehead. looking for the 85 of Nick Biddy, and I mean, we've gone more than half this race with no caution coming out. I mentioned the fact that Jay Gimbel led a number of laps here last season and finished in the garage area. Brock Salvati was up in the top 5 all day long one season ago, had an engine failure take place. Doesn't matter where you're running here at Texas, it always seems like it's
Daniels
got a
is
bit
in.
of an X factor.
Yeah, so DJ Daniels is now taking it to pit road. He's going to come in. I think, yeah, and this is good strategy from Wesley Fuller. You're not earning anything by coming to pit road and trying to play yourself in and around the strategy. Staying out, extending, you're giving yourself a shot. You're throwing caution to the wind. You're trying something completely and utterly different. I agree with this strategy from him.
Fuller right now on his 44th lap of this stint. And right
Get it
now,
going.
only
Make it another
7
50.
Yeah, why not? Only 7 seconds ahead of Trey Whitehead, so Whitehead will be taking the lead momentarily. Chris Papa around the outside of the 35. That will put him back on the lead lap. 12 drivers on the lead lap as they currently run. Next
So the
drivers that
benefit
would
here-
unlap themselves would be, I believe, DJ Daniel in the 23 just behind.
The benefit here for Wesley Fuller is that his last pit stop, he's only going to have to come down and take fuel. I bet you any money he will not take tires when he gets to the end here. He's just going to come down, take a splash, and come back out. He actually plays himself mega back into contention because he's been looking after those tires. The lap times are still reasonable, 32.1. He's right there in where you would expect a guy who's been out here for 40, 45 laps on those tires to be in terms of distance. I'd be really curious to ask him post-race what his tire wear was like at the end of stints.
Now the big question for him is he had a pretty good gap between himself and Trey Whitehead when he pulled this strategy on the first run. Now he's only less than 5 seconds ahead of Trey Whitehead, and he's still got to come to pit road. He managed to stay on the lead lap the last time around. I'm not so certain he's going to be able to stay on the lead lap this time.
You're going to remember that the next time he comes to pit road, he's only going to be stopped for like 2 or 3 seconds. So he's going to actually make up somewhere in the realm of 12 or so seconds the next time that he comes to pit road. Because he's only going to come down, he's only going to grab a splash, and then he's going to go back out. He's saving himself a set of tires as well. Should that string of cautions come out, he's going to have a huge advantage compared to the rest of the pack. He can pick whenever he wants and come in and take tires. He's just called out that he's coming in now. So there's a lot of opportunities here for Wesley Fuller. I really like this strategy.
See here, a clump of neon green spoilers. This is 6th, 7th, and 8th place battling Lawrence, Brock Whitehead, and Chris Woodard. Only one of the drivers in this battle left Phoenix with a top 10 run, and that would be the 9 machine. Woodard and Brock Whitehead not with the performances they were looking for, looking to use Texas as a bit of a comeback, get back the points that they lost, and after now everything cycling around with Trey Whitehead going back to the point, it's kind of deja vu with where we were back at the beginning of the second run, just after the first round of green flag pit stops. Bronson Stafford about 7 seconds behind the 33.
Yeah, so this is interesting, and the real respect between drivers got shown in the in-game chat as well. Brock was like, I'm just curious, what's the damage look like on that left-hand side of my car? I just need to see something. And Lawrence came over the radio immediately to say, hey man, you look good, it doesn't look too bad. So that's respect, that's working together as well from a lot of drivers, and that's really good to see, especially from guys that are fighting it out for a playoff contention spot. That's phenomenal.
Battle for 8th, Patrick McQuaid and Matthew Fleming. There's the 95 of Aaron Brown. Right now, the furthest back he has been all day long, right now in the 10th position. Jay Daniel is down in 11th. Cam Caldwell, who's been struggling a bit here today, he's all the way down in the 14th position. Last car on the lead lap. But we do have another driver that has gone back to the garage area. This was a while ago, but Dakota Knoll calling it an early evening as he's going to be finishing in the 27th position. It looks like Wesley Fuller, might have been busted for speeding as he spent a long period of time on pit road, and so all that strategy, whoa! Nearly lost it there on the apron 3 wide. All that strategy of maybe going fuel only next pit stop, that's out the window for the 35.
Yeah, it's gone. There was an opportunity there for him, no longer. So there's a difficult opportunity here because if you're a lead lap driver here and you've just seen Wesley Fuller come out of pit road, he's got better tires. He's fresher. This is a really interesting part of the race whereby Wesley Fuller's got a lot of pace. He's got to try and work his way through traffic, pick a bunch of guys off, see what he can really get done here. So at the same time, he's also going to make sure that he's looking after those cars that are ahead of him on those lead laps. He goes to the inside. Is this Trey Whitehead?
Not quite, but boy,
Oh, the bell car.
Militer, my goodness. Way out of shape. I think that was the 85 of Nick Biddy that was in the middle.
Yeah, it
and
was.
now he's getting crowded up by Patrick McQuaid in the 77. This is a hornet's nest, and this is just around the latter half of the top 10.
Yeah, and this is in one of the most critical areas of the racetrack as well. Look at all the playoff drivers that are involved in this pack, and they don't want to be. Chris Woodard's just only hanging out on the front end of these guys, and Wesley Fuller's made a great job cutting through. The thing I want to say about Wesley Fuller there is he needed to be aggressive to get through those guys, but he still showed a lot of respect and he gave a heap of space. That's great driving.
3 wide up the middle, DJ Daniel. He's going to get Aaron Brown on the inside and Patrick McQuaid maybe on the top side. He got wadded in behind the 85, the lap machine of Nick Biddy. That's going to allow McQuaid to stay to the low line on the 23. Also add in another machine to this group. That's the 4 of Matthew Fleming, non-playoff contender. They're all wadded up from about the 8th position on back. Nick Biddy right now in that 85 holding his ground, and
Daniels
slides up the track. And you're going to take advantage.
I mean, he had to get aggressive there. He went a long way up the track searching for that clean air, did DJ Daniels, because he was looking to try and get an overtake on the 77, and he was looking to over under the 85 as the 85 slid up the track, and that's exactly what happened, and he needed to create a little bit more space, and McQuaid wasn't 100% aware of what was going on to his outside, and you could just see that, but great driving by everyone. Again, phenomenal jobs by everyone involved.
Looking at lap times right now, and Bronson Stafford is reeling Trey Whitehead in a lot quicker this run than he was between the first and second round of green flag pit stops. He's now cut it down to less than 5.5 seconds. The last few times he has been a tenth to a tenth and a half quicker than the 33. And Tom Bourne's actually been faster than the top 2, but he's got about 7.5 seconds to make up before he could get up here to the 33.
Yeah, I think traffic's played itself quite critically into this fight of the top 3. I think that's why we're actually seeing the times be so different. You would expect that Stafford and Bourne should be massively faster than Trey Whitehead on the early portions of this run, and then it'll slowly bleed back, slowly normalize itself. But I think in the early phases of these runs, there's actually been a lot of traffic for them, and so the advantage that Bronson Stafford and Tom Bourne have had hasn't necessarily been there. And Whitehead's actually come out into a lot cleaner track than they were expecting. So it just hasn't gone their way. Ultimately, they've got to start finding something now. We're 108 laps in. We are, what's that, 59 laps or something to go? So if they're going to catch him, if they're going to reel him in, it starts now.
Jay Daniel is on the move. He's now up to the 6th position, getting around Christopher Lawrence, and now just ahead, the 31 of Brock Whitehead. So DJ Daniel about to crack the top 5, albeit nearly 20 seconds behind your race leader in the 33, Trey Whitehead. And remember, we mentioned here at the top of the evening, back-to-back poles to start out the playoffs, but still looking for his first trip to victory lane. Can the Whiteheads go 2 for 3 at the D-shaped mile-and-a-halfs this season?
And this is a really big result for Trey Whitehead as well. He's, not necessarily had clean track to work with a lot of the way through, but as this season has gone on, he's just started going from strength to strength to strength to strength. Finally clinches a couple poles. Last week was not an extended race where pole really mattered as much as it did here. Pole mattered so much more here just because of the aeroway and the way the cars sort of work at that above 150 sort of mile an hour range right throughout the circuit, right? Whereas Phoenix, the cars back themselves down a fair bit. They're on the brakes. They're trying to rotate themselves around. So pole was much more critical here, and he's really leveraged that.
Making his way around Zach Woods, putting the 62 laps down now. Woods, the first car, -2 in the 17th position. The car just ahead of him is the last car in the lead lap, 14th place, Chris Papa. He'll try and keep the 33 in his rearview mirror, but right now, in terms of lap times, he is about 0.2 slower than our race leader.
And I mean, Papa's doing a great job. It's just the way that the race has sort of played itself out. It's, again, Whitehead's just had that advantage from the first run, and I think they've been closing it, the guys behind him, but not quickly enough. And the runs just, they run out before they can really get the advantage out of these tires in terms of things from Bronson Stafford and Tom Bourne. I'm a little curious to see from Stafford and Bourne's point of view if they try and extend this run here and go short to the end. Because I think they're going to run out of time. If they get a caution, that's definitely the way to go. Because again, they'll have tire advantage if nobody pits, but everyone will pit if a caution comes out for sure.
There's been a changing cast of characters, but 6th place back to around 10th has been the fun place to watch the entirety of this race. Now you've got Lawrence, McQuaid, Aaron Brown, Matthew Fleming in this mix. Brock Whitehead just up ahead. It seems like back in the latter half of the top 10 is where drivers have been wadded up. A lot of the side-by-side racing has been taking place.
Yeah, interesting to note, Seth, we're actually getting into this window now. We're 43 laps or so to the end of the race, so any of these drivers can just pit and just go. We are right within that pit window time. It's time to decide, are you going to go long or are you going to go short? Because I think there's a big window for, I would say, Bronson Stafford to pull the pin and just go, hey, I'm going to short pit here. I'm going to come down early.
It's interesting. I was kind of trying to crunch the numbers, and these drivers stretched it the furthest that a driver has gone so far today, which is 48 laps. We'd be
51,
looking at
51 on that first stop
Was it
by
51?
Wesley
Right,
Fuller.
so we're looking that these guys could go, what, till about 39 to go, if my math is correct. Oh, no, 29 to go.
Caution!
Never mind. Aaron Brown in the 95 has gone around on the front straightaway.
He needs to pick it up, and he needs to get back out of there before the leader comes on by, or else he's not going to get that spot back. He's not going to be on the lead lap. His engine's gone.
Oh, man. He does have a faster pair. That's one thing that these guys have in this series. They do have that lifeline. Aaron Brown, by the way, came into this race as the current playoff points leader. Brings out the first caution of the evening, and oh man, I don't want to jinx anything, Scott, but I mean, we're at what? Coming to 50 laps to go. It's the closing stages. Things are going to get more aggressive. This may not be the last caution of the night now.
Cautions, Seth. I'm a little bit worried for this one.
Take a look off of turn 4. That's Christopher Lawrence on the top side. Oh, he gets the wall. Ran it way wide. He gets the 95 of Aaron Brown. I think that was the 4 of Matthew Fleming that was also collected, but he was able to gather it back up and drive through the infield grass to continue on.
The most excited part that I've got about this one is that I think Tom Bourne and I think Bronson Stafford are actually a little bit stronger here. As the race has developed, I think the pace has gone back in their favor, but I'll be curious to see.
He's on board with Aaron Brown, just nothing he could do. Innocent bystander. Actually very fortunate with that taking place on the first crook of that front straightaway that other drivers weren't involved, but the field was pretty spread out there with us running 115 laps under the green flag. But pit road is open. No shock that everybody is going to be coming down pit road, and Trey Whitehead going to win the battle off of pit lane. Stafford comes out second. Third place is going to be Tom Bourne, and how about Chris Papa? That was a 4-tire stop, it looked like, for the 13. He's going to come out behind Alexander Kerfan in the 5th position.
I'm wondering whether or not there was some damage repairs for a few of these guys.
13 never pit. My apologies. He actually stayed out. Is he the free pass, possibly? He might have actually been the lucky dog. I'm not certain. I think Trey Whitehead had already passed him, so I think he was actually the lucky dog machine.
So a quirk here, Aaron Brown got stuck behind the pace car. So he was allowed to go past the leader, but had to stop behind the pace car. That's critical, because now he's trapped a lap down, which means he's going to come a mile back to the field. There's nothing he can really do. He really needs another caution to come out here.
Tough break there for Aaron Brown, who's going to be one of the drivers that'll be hoping to maybe see another caution between now and the checkered flag to get back on the lead lap. And with Chris Papa getting back on the same lap as leader Trey Whitehead, there'll be 13 cars on the lead lap when we go back green.
Been doing up here. He shouldn't be up this high. He's grabbed spots on pit road. That's a phenomenal performance. It depends. Why are we 3 wide? Boys, why are we 3 wide?
Maybe some argument over space here, over positioning. It's Kerfan, Stafford, and Bourne that were 3 wide there. Not certain what that was about.
Okay,
But
now
feel that 33. Look at that 33 of Trey Whitehead. I mean, pretty much for the last 70 to 80 laps, the shortest gap you had back to second place was about 3.5 seconds. I mean, what is going through your mind now that everybody's on your back bumper for the first time since we took the green to start this race?
First and foremost, I've got to get a good jump here. I've got to get down into 1, and I've got to cover that inside line. If the guys want to run, they're going to have to go to the top side of the track. They're going to have to potentially threaten for the guys behind them to get a launch on these guys, and then potentially send it down to the inside of them. So, first and foremost, protect that inside line. Secondly, focus on just good runs here. You've been the quickest car in your mind so far tonight. I don't think that's the case. I think some of these other guys, I think DJ Daniels is potentially in with a really, really strong shot here tonight of actually running through these guys just purely because of how good he's been at looking after those tires. Long runs really played into his mind, and 38 laps to go, this is going to be a, air quotes, long run. It's not quite a long run, it's a medium to long length run. It's not a medium run, it's not a short run for sure. So, this is going to get spicy here, Seth. There's going to be a lot of contesting for position here.
Got to do a lot of homework on these drivers with the long green flag run we had. I'll give you 3 names to keep an eye on here towards the closing stages that I think have the 3 fastest cars in the long run. Rodriguez would be 1, DJ Daniel would be another, and Matthew Fleming in that 4. They have consistently been the 3 fastest on the long run if we don't see the caution flag again here tonight. Trey Whitehead and Bronson Stafford, that's your front row. Kerfan and Bourne are going to be row 2. Brock Whitehead, DJ Daniel in row 3. Matthew Fleming, Patrick McQuaid, Matthew Rodriguez, and Christopher Lawrence, that's your top 10. Last drivers on the lead lap, 11th Woodard, 12th Caldwell, and 13th Chris Papa.
Yeah, and then remember, Aaron Brown, 1 lap down. Lead driver, 1 lap down. Keep an eye on Matthew Fleming. Keep an eye on Kerfan. Kerfan's been really struggling on these tires, so I'm expecting Kerfan to get aggressive in these early stages here.
Up through the gears goes the 33.
Whitehead,
No tire
what a
spin.
launch.
Gets themselves a very nice launch. Stafford going to tuck down in front of Tom Bourne for second place. Bourne into third. Kerfan trying to find the inside line in front of Brock Whitehead for fourth.
And this is critical from Bronson Stafford. You got to remember, non-playoff driver up here. He's pushing for his positions. He's trying to do everything he possibly can. He's here for pride. That's all that he's here for. Everyone else is championship implications. So if he can give a spot back to his teammate Tom Bourne in the later stages of this race, look for that. He's going to try and set it up so that he doesn't lose another spot out of it. And Bourne wants to get as much over his rivals as he can.
Got a battle back there for 7th. Matthew Rodriguez to the inside of Matthew Fleming, who may have had some contact in the left rear from Christopher Lawrence, then a little more contact possibly to the left front as the 9th going to muscle his way up into that spot. Look up ahead. Tom Bourne, big block down the back straightaway on the 99 of Kerfan for 3rd.
Yeah, and the reason that Tom Bourne threw that block was he got loose coming off of 1 and 2. So he lost a lot of momentum, which is why you don't see him over the rear bumper of the cars up ahead. Look at Stafford getting aggressive with Trey Whitehead.
Trey Whitehead, meet Bronson Stafford, the 2-time winner. He wants to go to victory lane for a 3rd time this season.
Here comes
Bourne.
Bourne.
Take a look here. Bourne with a big run. Kerfan's got a big run. Whitehead's there. Throw a blanket over the top 6 or 7. They're all nose to tail.
Bourne missed the entry to the corner. Bourne missed it by a mile. An absolute country mile. Great driving by Kerfan.
Kerfan takes advantage. Brock Whitehead now looks
There's
for
an
4th.
issue.
DJ Daniel there in 5th.
There's got to be an issue for Tom Bourne. You don't lose that many spots without an issue.
Saw him really loose there off of turn 4, so may have lost the momentum on the front straightaway. Stafford peaks low. He wants the race lead. We may have our first lead change here in terms of not green flag pit stops coming into play at Texas Motor Speedway. Stafford looks to edge ahead here at the front straightaway. He'll lead at the line.
Yeah, and now you've got the Whitehead side by side here as well. Look at Kerfan. Kerfan wants this.
Alexander Kerr fan. Of course, that is the car out of JKR Motorsports that Matthew Robinson won the championship with 1 season ago. Kerr fan found victory lane at Talladega earlier on this season, looking for his second win on the year. He threw a bit of a block there on Brock Whitehead, who's got his hands full. Driver's right, it's DJ Daniel up top side.
Yeah, look at Daniel go. Matt Rodriguez shows the nose. Lawrence is there as well. This is gone crazy. We had a green flag, stops race, right the way through. These guys are setting the track alight right now.
What was looking like was going to be maybe at maximum 3 drivers potentially to race for this win has all of a sudden been tripled. We've got about 9-10 drivers up here with a shot of going to victory lane, and every single one of them looks like they've got the speed to do it.
Yeah, and keep your eyes on Bourne as well. He got checked up early in this run. I think he's still got the pace to get back up here. He's closing in on that 31. Whitehead, beware.
The tire tracks there. Well, not anymore through 1 and 2 of Brock Whitehead. Looking ahead to DJ Daniel in the 23. And then behind him is his teammate out of Sky Motorsports, Matthew Rodriguez. I mean, as you mentioned, battling COVID, but right now, solid out up inside the top 10 in 7th place. A driver who started this race from pit road. And there is something for Matthew Rodriguez and others that didn't make the playoffs to be able to battle for, because there's a best of the rest championship that's going on as well. Rodriguez in the middle of that. I believe he is 3rd right now in that championship standings.
Yeah, and have a look at the 31 all over that rear bumper of DJ Daniels. He's having to get aggressive with those blocks. 31 to the inside. He wants this.
Now remember, last week we saw a lot of contact exchange between drivers at Phoenix. You gotta wonder, with the close quarter racing of the drivers up here inside the top 10, does any of that carry over today? Drivers have very good memories, and how about this? Kerr fan, he's got thoughts. He wants the race lead. He poked his nose out there on the front straightaway. He's about half a car length off the bumper of that 16 Toyota.
Remember, the 99 yet to go to victory lane as well this season, so he's got a lot of. Sorry, no, my apologies. He did go to victory lane just once, but a win here in the playoffs that would set his season back alight, light a fire back underneath him. Stafford is here to deny it. Stafford wants to take this one out for Sky Motorsports.
Bronson Stafford looking for back-to-back victories and starts at mile-and-a-half tracks. Of course, winning the regular season finale at Las Vegas. His precursor was the 2-mile Speedway at Michigan. But Kerr fan, he's to the left rear quarter panel. Let's see what he can do down the back straightaway. Looks like he may have had to lift a little on corner exit. Trey Whitehead around the top side. He wants to get back at Stafford.
Yeah, remember, Whitehead's been good in these long runs, but this is the first real time we've had to see him fight for position, but also fight in that draft. I'm wondering whether or not Stafford's starting to burn his stuff up, or if this is just the nature of Texas coming to us.
Here's the thing, too. Remember, we were talking about the fact that really the side-by-side battling all race long was around the 6th to 10th position. Would that have given those guys an advantage of what's going on right now? Because if you were Stafford, Whitehead, Tom Bourne, the only traffic, the only dirty air you had to deal with is if you came up on a slower machine during that long green flag run. Now you're having to deal with traffic all around you.
Yeah, there's traffic just about everywhere, man. There's so much going on, and look at Rodriguez. For me, I'm looking at him, and he's just like, you know what? I ain't got nothing up here to fight for. I don't need to care about any of these guys. I'm gonna get aggressive, man. Why not? Let's do something different. Tom Bourne's starting to come back at DJ Daniels. The other thing, Seth, these guys, for most of this race, have been trying to conserve tires, trying to look after tires. Now they're doing that, but at the same time, they've got to make sure they get good corner entry, good corner exit. They're managing, trying to set up an overtake on the cars up ahead of them and defend all at the same time. This is intense racing.
Oh man, and they're getting really racy back there, just outside of the top 10. Cam Caldwell in this group, Christopher Lawrence, Patrick McQuaid, Chris Woodard in that mix as well. Things getting really dicey from around the 6th position back to 8th, and then from 9th back to 12th.
And have a look at Josh Billett has just come off a pit road. If he's got fresh tires and he comes out here, he's going to get involved in this mix. This is not good for most of these drivers. They don't want somebody who's not in this race fighting with them for position.
Like Billard indeed does have fresh Goodyears, albeit 3 laps down now with what I would have to assume was an unscheduled pit stop. Matthew Rodriguez, DJ Daniel, very close door to door off of turn 2. That's the battle for 5th place. That wads up Tom Bourne and Matthew Fleming behind them.
Look at the run Rodriguez got. Tom Bourne noticed something up there from his teammate. DJ Daniels touches the apron. Bourne grabs a spot away from Fleming.
When you saw there Rodriguez turn from top to bottom across the nose of the 23, we know that nothing upsets the front of a race car more than being crossed over by a driver, especially in the center of the corner. Oh, we got a spinner! Somebody's around there in
McQuaid.
turn 1. That's Patrick McQuaid in the 77. He saves it, but the caution will fly for the second time tonight at Texas.
Why? I mean, remember what I said about Josh Billiter? He's got fresh tires. He wants to come through these guys. He needs to get involved. He's trying to get his lap back. Oh, there's gap whack in that for sure.
Take a look and see what happened. He was in that mix of drivers battling for 9th through 12th. I believe that's Chris Woodard in the 24. Oh, yeah. And
Tell you what,
he was
I don't
pinned.
think
He was
there's any
better.
reason for Billiter to shove his nose down there. To be
No.
perfectly honest, there's
No,
no
not at all.
space. The line is coming down. You've got fresh tires. Go to the outside if you've got fresh tires. Don't go to the low side.
100% agree. Yeah, I mean, the 77 was battling with the 24 for position, was kind of pinched down there, had to make sure that he lifted not to run into the left rear quarter panel of Woodard, and yeah, 3
There's
laps
no gap
down.
there.
Why would you take the inside line when clearly 3 cars ahead of you were taking the inside line through that corner?
I mean, in Billiter's, the one thing I will say in Billiter's defense there is, like I said, he needs to get, he's got fresher tires. He's trying to get his lap back. He's got every right to try and do that. So, I don't know, man. I just don't think I would have done it that way. There are better ways to do that.
Great save nonetheless, though, by Patrick
But, yeah.
McQuaid. And this now, let's remember, Aaron Brown needed a caution to get back on the lead lap. This caution now puts him back on the same strategy as everybody else, albeit, let's bear in mind that being the lucky dog, he is going to have to start at the very tail end of the field. He will not be up there in the 14th position on track, so to speak, with all the lapped cars behind him, and maybe might stop on pit road. It's Trey Whitehead, Bronson Stafford, and Brock Whitehead, the top 3. That number 1 pit stall playing dividends for the pole sitter.
Yeah, and the critical factor, have a look back there with Matt Rodriguez, Kerfin. They were 3 wide coming out of the pits, so close together. That's a NASCAR pit stop right there.
So second caution of the day coming now in the vicinity of 30 laps to go. With
Hang on.
the 95 back in the lead lap. That'll be 14 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. Potentially, there are a couple of
31
guys
got a speeding penalty.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah, would have started in 3rd. A couple of guys that might take the wave around here. Gene Cato in the 2 car, only 19 laps on his tires. And he right now is ahead of the race leader, so we'll see if he takes the wave around. Zachary
for sure.
Woods and Wesley Fuller are also ahead of the leaders, but it looks like Woods may be indicating
Woods
he's coming
Gartner.
down pit road this time. About the 35? No, 35 staying out. So maybe the 2 and the 35 might be electing to take the wave around. Wesley Fuller's got 36 laps on his tires.
Well, another twist in the tail, Seth. We've had great green flag racing here tonight. We've had bits and pieces back and forth. It has been a phenomenal race, and I think there's still a lot of stories here to really kind of play themselves out. There's not a future. Actually, I just heard on the radio. I'm wondering whether or not the 99 of Kerfan shoved the 31 into the pit lane. I think that may have been where the 31 picked up his speeding penalty from. It wasn't actually him. I think he may have been slowed down. Because why would Kerfan be apologizing to Brock Whitehead otherwise?
We'll take a look and see if we can pinpoint that. Go all the way back to when they came down pit road.
Yeah, he nudged him right before the line. Literally a few feet before the line. He nudges him.
You see the commitment line and... Oh, yeah. Stacked him up there. Rodriguez actually got into the back of the 99. I think the 23 got into the back of the 57.
The 57 I don't think makes contact. But he comes very close to making contact.
And with that stack up, good call there, Scott, because with that stack up, possible damage on the drivers involved, and we now have some very strong cars that are actually now a faster pair in the hole as a result. Alexander Kerfan, Brock Whitehead, like Christopher Lawrence, Matthew Fleming, Aaron Brown, all those drivers, they have used faster pairs at this point in time of the drivers on the lead lap.
I mean, if you're going to burn it, you may as well burn it now, right? Oh, man. Okay, so a couple things to consider right here. We have two non-playoff drivers up here in our top 5. You've got Bronson Stafford and you got Matthew Rodriguez. They're sitting inside the top 3 even. Right up here. All the way up into the top 5. Like, this is massive.
And you alluded to this earlier. Depending on where they finish, ahead of some of the playoff contenders, that's a point that they take away from those playoff contenders to be able to either maintain their gap or close up their gap of that 4th position in the standings.
I'm just going to have a look right now. I think the critical factor is if Trey Whitehead, if we freeze the field right now, the race ends as it would be. Aaron Brown's back in 14th. The margin from him to Trey Whitehead is 12 points. Whitehead would assume the lead of the playoffs by 1 point.
True, yeah. Good call there. Actually,
it's not necessarily critical. What that does do is it brings the field. Remember I was talking about the field getting condensed again? That's what it'll do.
And DJ Daniel right now running in 4th. If Trey Whitehead were to win this race, that would still put the 33 ahead of the 23 in the point standings. As the green flag out, less than 30 to go. Double wide for the 3rd spot. Roles reversed from what they were a couple of laps ago. It was Rodriguez top side and DJ Daniel on the bottom. Rodriguez used the inside line to keep the 3rd spot from the 23. Tom Bourne, he's under fire from Kerfan for 5th. They're wadded up double file, 3 rows deep behind him.
Tom Bourne, Kerfan got very close off the exit of 4. Tom Bourne's trying to pinch Kerfan down the track a little bit, try and not allow him to roll up the track, because he'll have to burn a little bit more tyres. Now, Bourne will try and build the momentum here on the high side, and I think Kerfan's going to clear him. That's critical early on in this run here. Tom Bourne might just try and slide back a little bit. Look after those sides. Look at Daniels weaving all over the track.
Talks about the long run speed of Matthew Rodriguez. How about the short run speed? Got around Bronson Stafford for 2nd. Stafford now crosses him over once again to get the runner-up position. And now it may be no man's land for the 57. Trapped on the top side. It's going to be Stafford going to 2nd place. DJ Daniel going to move into 3rd. Kerfan lined up there as well.
So Stafford goes to the high line. He's looking to get that clear nose and corner exit, not burn up that tire. Dives to the inside!
And he's going to make it work. The lane is there. Trey Whitehead gives him the space, but Stafford had to back out of the throttle. Rodriguez keeps his foot in it. May get the wall there off of 4. Same for Kerfan. They got pretty close to that blue wall off the final corner, but they still continue to battle. Somebody, that was DJ Daniel. With some connection
I think he's around. I think he's around.
Oh, no!
Oh, and you know what? Chris Woodard gets into him as well. That's
never spun it. No caution. And so close racing there in that lead pack. A horrible time for a driver to be experiencing connection issues. And DJ Daniel, just like that, has fallen all the way back to 14th place.
Tell you what, DJ Daniels coming into this race only 3 points above that cut line. So if he loses 3 points to, let's say, he would need to lose 5 to Kyle Gartner for Kyle Gartner to jump him. Actually, we'd only need to lose 3 to both Lawrence and Whitehead to be outside that cutoff line. That could be a critical moment in his playoffs.
Right now, you've got Whitehead in the race lead, Lawrence up inside the top 5 and 5th, and Matthew Rodriguez, he's going to look to the inside. This is a car that started from pit road, ladies and gentlemen, that is now 144 laps later going to try and go to the point here at Texas. He's got his teammate Bronson Stafford to help push him down the back straightaway. Sky Motorsports right now 1, 2, and 4 as they enter into turn 3.
Onboard's coming. Whitehead struggling on this restart. His last restart was good. He was up there. He had control. He knew what he was doing. Now we're a lot closer to the finish. With 22 laps to go here, Seth. These guys are getting racy, and all of a sudden, I just start to see the sweat pour off Trey Whitehead.
23 laps left. Stafford with a look down the back straightaway. The blocks are going to get much more aggressive with those 4 or 5 lanes available on the straight. Now Stafford to the top side on Rodriguez. Trey Whitehead trying to find a lane. He's going to maybe look 3 wide. He's looking middle, looking low, back up to the top side down the crooked front straightaway.
Yeah, and critically right there was Tom Bourne, got a huge wiggle on, coming off a 3 and 4 once again. He's really struggling, not with the front tires, not with that front right, he's struggling with the rear tires. That's where he's losing all his momentum.
Watch out for Christopher Lawrence. Mentioned the fact he had a top 10 caution.
Oh.
Zach Woods. Back straightaway, hard hit for the playoff contender.
Well, 6 sets of tires, 6 sets of tires, Seth. I think we've already taken 5. Do you take your last set with 20 to go? I think you gotta.
I think you have to as well. Let's go back and see what happened to Zach Woods, running currently, I believe, 2 laps down to the race leaders. And he was battling at the time with, I believe that's the 83 of Joe David, who was multiple laps down himself. Oh, and very much like what we saw happen with Aaron Brown and Christopher Lawrence off turn 4 in our first caution. That time the 83 gets the wall, comes down, and nowhere to go. Innocent victim is Zach Woods.
Oh, that's disappointing, because he comes down a lane and a bit as well. That's unfortunate. The Miracle Man, Zach Woods. As, again, like I said, Seth, he's one of the guys for me. I've now got a line through him on the playoff standings list. But this now presents a huge opportunity, I think, to 2 cars in particular. And that's the 95 and the 31. Both of them had EOLs in that last cycle, pit cycles. So now they get to come back down and they get to reset on this cycle. That's critical.
Now you asked the question, do you come down pit road and take on that final set? Some drivers said yes, some drivers said no. We've got about 6 drivers that are electing to stay out.
This is not what Kyle Gartner wanted to see. Kyle Gartner was setting himself up here to grab one of his laps back, potentially start to play himself back in contention. The split strategies will prevent that.
Rodriguez, Kerfan, Caldwell, Brock Whitehead, Aaron Brown, and Gene Cato, who, by the way, did indeed take the wave around under the last yellow flag, so that caution keeps him on the lead lap. They all stay out. Christopher Lawrence, he went with, it looks like, a 2-tire strategy. He was the first off pit road, currently lined up to restart 7th. 2 tires as well for Matthew Fleming, 2 tires for Bronson Stafford, and 2 tires for Chris Papa. Going with 4 tires is 11th place Tom Bourne, as well as Woodard, McQuaid, Trey Whitehead, all the way back to the 14th position for this upcoming restart. And that yellow flag saving DJ Daniel, at least for the time being, it looks like. He was able to come down, take on his faster pair, and he'll be up here with the lead lap cars once again.
And that is going to be a DJ Daniels with a very, very angry red mist settling driving style now. He is going to be aggressive. We've seen him good on the long runs tonight, and he wants his win. He wants to stamp that name of authority. This is the first season we've seen him not get a win in, so this is big for DJ Daniels here. He's going to come out. He's going to be fire. He's got a huge opportunity. Now, let's talk about the split strategies here, Seth, as well. Matthew Rodriguez, Kerfan, and Cam Caldwell, and I believe Brock Whitehead as well. All of these guys up here that have not elected to take a stop this time by, they're expecting another caution. If we get another 5 to 10 laps in here, the advantage on those tires is going to build up for the guys who come back down. This is their last set. This is a big question mark over when you took them. And ultimately, this comes down to 2 things. Do we get another caution? Guys out front here who haven't stopped, they'll win the race for sure. Guys up back who haven't got another set of tires, they're screwed. There's nothing they can really do. If this goes green, the guys that come down, took their last set of tires under this caution, will surge to the front. They'll be in control.
I'm going to put you on the spot here with a question in regards to Kerfan and Whitehead, because those 2 drivers come into this race. Whitehead 10th in the point standings, Kerfan 12th. Obviously, they're hoping for the caution to help their strategy out, but do you like this call with them both coming in quite a critical position?
I mean, yes, I do. Again, what was I talking about earlier? If you're in a critical position, you've got to be a little bit more aggressive. You've got to try and make something happen. A consistent finish won't play you into the playoffs. You have to get a great finish, and you have to hope for that little bit of poor luck from everyone else. So yeah, this is a phenomenal strategy call from them. I really like this. This is going to present them with some opportunities. The reason that Aaron Brown is playing himself in here is because he's basically a lock, right? No matter what happens, if they get a clean run here, if they get another caution here, he's going to pick up a whole bank worth of points, and he's in a really, really good spot to grab a big advantage out of this.
Should mention that the lucky dog under that caution went to the 88 of Noah Owens.
That's critical too.
So
I mean,
that's
that
gonna be 17
huge-
cars on the lead lap when we go back green.
that's a huge opportunity for Noah to get himself back in contention. Again, another one of those drivers, in fact, is equal dead last in the playoff standings with Gene Cato. So those two drivers have got a huge opportunity here. If we get another caution back-to-back here, I expect those two drivers to have a huge responsibility on their shoulders to go get some points.
Well, let's see what happens here as we're going to get ready to go back green with officially 17 laps in this race here tonight at Texas. Second playoff race of the season for the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series. You've got two playoff contenders that elected to stay out that are outside the top 9 the playoff points. Two playoff contenders that are currently inside of the top 4 in the playoff standings, and then Matthew Rodriguez trying to get that best of the rest championship and his first win on the season. Green flag in the air, nice launch for the 57 of Rodriguez, about a car length and a half over Kerfan going into turn 1. They're wadded up behind them, and keep an eye mid-pack, because that's where the 4 fresh tires are going to try moving to the front and in a hurry.
Yeah, keep your eyes on Stafford. That's the first one. Simonovsky just come on the radio and said there was an issue there, and is that Woodard on the inside?
It is. Not certain if he was losing that car off the corner or what the case was, but he nearly went down onto the apron, dropping all the way back to last car in this group on the lead lap in the 15th position. Meanwhile, oh, did someone get the wall? I think they're on the front straightaway. They all fanned out. Yes, Chris Papa, I think.
Someone's around because we got that caution flag yet again.
Oh, big wreck into turn 1. Oh, they're still wrecking. That was Joe David who never slowed. He hit Modespa. Noah Owens is in the vicinity. A couple of others were also collected up in that one. Mike Corvo.
82.
Started with somebody up on the front straightaway. And I think it might have been the 13, but I'm not 100% certain. Somebody was right up against that outside wall.
I'm disappointed, Seth. What is Joe David doing? You can't just full throttle into that wreck. That's ludicrous. He has got probably 5 or 6 seconds to react here, and he still just does not react.
Here's what brought out the caution. Chris Papa and Tom Bourne battling with each other, and oh wow, it almost kind of looked like the two of them locked sheet metal and couldn't get off of each other. Oh wow, and then Gene Cato trying to avoid, overcorrects the car back up into the outside wall and then shoots back down into traffic. We'll get another camera shot of that heading into the turn 1 entry.
I'm going to need to go ahead and pass on some comments from our YouTube chat. Keep those coming in too, guys. Anyone but Matthew Rodriguez to win this one. Can somebody please wreck him?
Oh man, there's Mike Corvo, nowhere to go. Josh Billiter, David Modespa, all involved in that one. There's Noah Owens, and then there you see that orange car of Joe David just come flying in. Didn't even look like he got on the brakes.
There's no reason to.
Oh.
He's so far back. Like, he can see this. I've seen blind men react quicker than him. I'm sorry. There's no other way to say it. That's...
And he's also running last car in the race. Multiple
Why? Why? It's okay. Okay, that's fine. His race is already ruined. So why ruin somebody else's?
Yep. Well, that's going to be a number of drivers having to use their faster pairs. Some of them may have already used their faster pairs. That could be very easily race over for
Shout
these
out to
drivers.
Shelley Insurance, by the way. Woodard, Chris Woodard actually just sent me a private message that says, "Save of my life going into turn 1." So
that explains why we saw him down there on the apron on the exit of turn 2.
Wow.
Right, so
that wasn't long enough of a green flag run, and the race is significantly shorter to the end from here. Do you now opt to flip-flop and come back down? I don't think you do. I think the guys that have already got that track position, I think they're going to continue to hold it. Kerfan lost a lot of spots early on in that run here, and Cam Caldwell's going to be lining up on the outside of this front row. Another strong opportunity here for Cam Caldwell. I think he's the biggest driver at risk. And I think, to be perfectly honest with you, Brock Whitehead's got a really, really big opportunity here to potentially lead this race.
Now, you will notice that our ticker currently says we're under our first caution. We did have an issue, it looked like, with the standings. We have fixed that, but it has reset our caution counter. So we're actually not under our first caution of the evening. I believe we're under our fourth caution of the night. So just bear that in mind here, folks. But does have the standings correct now with the intervals, and it does show that we have 17 drivers on the lead lap, with Mike Sibanovsky getting the free pass under this most recent yellow flag.
Here we go, Seth. This is critical. This is big. This is what the season starts to come down to. And remember, we haven't talked about it in a little bit of time, but ultimately, next week, Iowa, last season, Caution Fest. We talked about this at the start of the race. This was a big, big race where a lot of people went backwards, and a lot of people that maybe not necessarily would have been up towards the front found their way up there. I believe Matthew Robinson still ended up coming out on top of that race last season. But hey, look, that's just how things go. When you're up front, you dodge a lot of those wrecks. This time out, though, going into the playoffs, it's so critical, especially with the driving that we've now seen out on track. Now, I will say, all the playoff drivers have been doing a phenomenal job. I don't think anyone out here has been taking excessive risk at all. I think all the drivers are attempting to push themselves forward. And I went back and had a look at that moment from Chris Woodard. He went into turn 1 3 wide. That's the reason he got loose.
And
Did the 83 just leave pit road? With a closed pit exit?
82 of Mike Corbeau.
That was a closed pit exit for sure.
Yep. 3 laps down. Or, I'm sorry, correction. He is actually 4 laps down in the 24th position.
He may delay the green here.
He just came off pit road from a near 2-minute pit stop. He did not have a faster pair in the bank, and we saw that he got some pretty extensive contact from that wreck over into turn 1. Where does he line up? That's the question.
What's he doing?
I'm not sure. Is he being scored ahead of the 31 in terms of this restart? If that's the case, then oh my goodness. Oh.
There we go. It's been handled. It's been handled. He just got near well.
There we go.
Stop. Please stop. Please, Mike, stop. Just stop. 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 Completely come to a stop. Please, just come to a stop. Oh.
Looks like everybody's going to get around him before we go green, fortunately, here. So here we go. Going to be 11 laps to go here as Matthew Rodriguez back up through the gears. And right now, if you're Matthew Rodriguez, these cautions are your best friend, because every caution lap that you lead is one less lap that you're having to defend out your rear view mirror of the competition behind you, especially those fresh tires. Stafford now going to move up to the 5th position, trying to get around Alexander Kerfan, as Rodriguez trying to break the draft for Cam Caldwell in 2nd place. Brock Whitehead 3rd, Christopher Lawrence right now in the 4th position.
Kerfan's going backwards. Bronson Stafford's got those fresher tires. This is where he's going to start to surge. I think Stafford's got this one. Christopher Lawrence, sorry, is the lead car on those fresh tires. My apologies.
Well, he's only got 2 fresh tires, let's remember as well. Went with right sides only. He's going to look to the inside.
Oh, contact in the back. Is that Gene Kano? I think it was.
Big hit for Aaron Brown in the 95 as well, and he had already used his fast repair. 5th caution of the evening. Aaron Brown, hard impact with the front end of his machine into the inside wall.
Oh, now it's too late, Seth. If you come down pit road, you're not going to have enough laps to get that time back up, and you're not going to have enough time to grab all those spots back. So now you're committed to this strategy. Matthew Rodriguez's starts have been phenomenal. He's really pulled out at the front every single restart. Caldwell is struggling to get up to him here, and we're going to have a couple laps left to go on the green here.
And I don't know what happened just prior to that wreck taking place. I don't know if Stafford got pinned on the inside line or what, but he was up to 4th. He's now back to 6th here when the caution flag flew.
Man, that's, yeah. So Stafford effectively got pinched down, so Christopher Lawrence got real loose coming off of 1 and 2 and come down across towards that inside line, which checked up the momentum of Stafford. And that's what's actually going to cause that incident, is everyone still trying to look for that space and make that run, and unfortunately that's just what it is.
Well, I'm not sure what it was that Aaron Brown hit right there. It actually shot his car backwards there on the back straight, with the car that was to his outside that I think hooked him in the right rear. We saw with that onboard, I think was the 77 of Patrick McQuaid. We'll get another camera
that was
angle of
McQuaid.
it here.
It was definitely McQuaid.
And bear in mind, that's the points leader, only 12 points to the good over the cut line coming into this race.
Okay, Seth. Alright. Hot take for you. Kyle Gartner gets himself back in the top 10.
He could.
He just went to 1 lap down.
We've seen miracles take place this season. Case in point, Zach Woods, 7 laps down at Pocono. Late race yellows take place. He finishes the race in the 7th position. The same could happen for Kyle Gartner here tonight. Now, the only thing that's not on his side currently is the laps. Because when we hit the line this next time by, there's going to be, well, fair enough, good point.
Green, white, checker. He gets 1 more caution. He's on the lead lap. We got 2 green, white checkers, top 10, I think. That's a recovery mission. That is a phenomenal recovery mission.
Aaron Brown on pit road. Damage repair has to be manual now. He had already used his fast repair back after the 3rd caution.
Too much damage. He's done.
I'll be surprised if he stays on the lead lap, even if he does get back out there. Now it's the question of how much of the damage can he minimalize here heading into that wild card race of Iowa next week. And now the driver that Matthew Rodriguez has to worry about would be the 23 of DJ Daniel. He is now the highest with the 4 fresh tires in 5th place. Lawrence still there holding 4th with the 2 fresh right side tires, but yeah, I know the cautions have fallen.
Aaron Brown's done. Aaron Brown is for sure done. Forget that. He's done. So he's going to lose championship lead. So we've had pretty much going into Iowa next week. I don't want to be the championship leader.
No, not at all. Woodard was the championship leader going into Phoenix. He lost it. Aaron Brown, the championship leader coming into tonight. He's going to lose it. Oh boy.
Pull that crystal ball out, Seth.
I've been trying to keep it in the closet as best I can here tonight.
No.
I especially during that long green flag run was trying as best I could to not jinx a caution coming out.
I tell you what, Seth, you pull that crystal ball out, you make a prediction here. I want to call Rodriguez wins this. I really do. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to call DJ Daniels getting his first win of the season.
I just think with what we've seen here in the closing stages of the race, I mean, like the last third, the laps that we've run with the cautions in between have worked out for Rodriguez, Caldwell, and Whitehead. Rodriguez has been able to keep more than 2 cars between himself and the fresh tires. I think he can close this thing out. Again, much like what we saw happen, though, with Trey Whitehead, he's got to nail the restarts, though.
That's the issue. I think Brock Whitehead has got like I said, Brock Whitehead I think jumps Cam Caldwell here for sure. And these restarts, the outside lane's just not being able to get going initially. Which is why I think if DJ Daniels can clear Lawrence, that gives him only 3 cars up ahead of him that he's fighting for position, and all 3 of those cars are on older tires. Now remember, Lawrence is on outsides, right? He's taking right sides only. So he's going to be under grip. He's going to have a little bit more grip than the cars ahead of him, a little bit more pace, but not a massive amount here. So it's going to be critical. These guys made their last pit stop on lap 136 or 148. That's the only laps we've got in the field.
If you're DJ Daniel or Bronson Stafford, depending on who ends up taking the 5th position here on this restart, and you get around the 2 fresh right side tires of Christopher Lawrence, do you immediately go to the top side? Because I have the feeling the 57, the 12, the 31, they're not going to give up the bottom.
No, I don't think they will either, and I think they need to... The problem for those guys is they need the whole track to make the corners and make that momentum. They've got to really arc the corners as late as possible, hold that momentum up, do what they really can here. So I think the 23's best bet is to get up there, check a little bit on corner entry, wait for those guys to bobble down the track, and then gun it.
By the straightaway. Wesley Fuller, who took the wave around 2 cautions ago, on the lead lap in 15th place. 16 drivers on the lead lap. Green flag back in the air with 5 laps to go here at Texas. Another good restart for Matthew Rodriguez, but Cam Caldwell got himself a decent jump as well.
And interesting to note is, where does Bronson Stafford go? DJ Daniels got a horrid restart. Stafford's now the leader on those fresher tires. We're going to have 5 to go now. Seth is coming to 4.
Stafford to the top on Brock Whitehead. The right side tires of Lawrence holding the 3rd spot. DJ Daniel mired back in the 6th position. And Trey Whitehead right behind him.
And have a look at DJ Daniels. He's getting aggressive here. All of a sudden, I'm starting to think that maybe Bronson Stafford only took right sides.
Still holding on the top side there with the 31. Looks like he'll swing around. Man, oh man. Oh, maybe some contact for second. Lawrence and Caldwell, as the 12 was really squirrely down the back straightaway. Rodriguez loving this out the rearview mirror because they're more concentrated on that runner-up spot than they are on the race lead at this point in time.
Woodard, he's reset himself. Tom Bourne's dropped a lot of space back, so Woodard's reset perfectly.
Contact between Lawrence and Caldwell sends the 12
Contact between Woodard.
Oh! And now he's going to get hit from Trey Whitehead. They're going to keep it pointing the right direction. No, they're not. Caldwell, hard to the inside wall. Yellow flag waves once again.
Oh, McQuaid! Yeah. Somebody just sent McQuaid! Was that Fuller?
And Woodard is wrecked over in turn 3.
Whoa, what the hell? Who is that underneath Tom Bourne? Tom Bourne was underneath Chris Woodard?
24 I saw over there in turn 3. Let's go back and document everything that just took place. We'll start with the Cam Caldwell incident. Started with him and Christopher Lawrence, and I think it was the 33 of Trey Whitehead that kind of finished him off. Here it was again. Looks like that 9 may have come up the track into the left front of Caldwell. Oh man, and then does the 24 send the 33 up the track into Caldwell?
It gets tight on the inside, but yeah, that's effectively what's happening, yeah. The issue is, keep watching for Chris Woodard. I think Tom Bourne's got a huge case to answer here. I don't know why Tom Bourne's turned him.
Take a look here at the follow-up
This happens
incident.
after the wreck.
There you see the contact. 24 indeed getting tight. Whitehead up into Caldwell, and then caution's out at this point. Oh man, and oh man, there's McQuaid. Yeah, it looks like Tom Bourne not too happy of the block Woodard threw on him and wasn't going to lift. Oh boy, and we thought the tempers were flaring last week at Phoenix.
I mean, here's the thing. Chris Woodard needed a great finish tonight, and I think he's already burned his fast repair.
Yes.
So he's done. His season is over.
Here's the onboard with the 24. Watch as we hit the back straightaway. We're going to look from the back of the 24 car.
Touches the apron. Okay, that explains everything.
See, he comes down. He's blocking the 54 of Tom Bourne, and Tom just not getting off his left rear quarter panel. I think that the
I don't know.
Noah Owens might have also made some contact with the 24 there.
Well, McQuaid just gets sent into the barrier by it.
Yep.
So his night will be done.
I mean, we were talking about the playoff contenders doing a pretty good job here tonight of staying out of trouble. And just like that, we're seeing a lot of those neon green playoff banners getting involved in these late race wrecks.
So Aaron Brown just messaged me and says, I think my championship hopes are over. I don't think so, just because he's leading coming in. But now you have a look towards Iowa, and like I said, this makes Iowa just the gravity of what's going to happen in Iowa be so much more important. And remember what I said about that last caution? 49 now of Kyle Gartner has been running off the lead laps for the bulk of the night after an incident on lap number 1. He's now back on the lead lap. He's got a clean car. He's got fresher tires. He's in a really good spot here for Kyle Gartner.
Well, we're going into overtime. It will be our first attempt at a overtime green-white checkered, and this is going to mark the longest Texas race so far in the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series, as last year we ran only one lap over time to lap 168. We will run at least to lap 172, I do believe here. I think we've got at least one more lap of pacing here before we eventually get them back under the green, and that is in the fact that we only have one overtime green-white checkered here. There still is the possibility we could have a couple more.
Yeah, wow, no, one more. We've got one more attempt after this one. So
And we talked about the green-white checkers possibly helping out the 49 of Kyle Gartner. Free pass machine here under this yellow flag, going to be restarting back in the 16th position.
Oh, Seth. Oh, my word. Are you ready for the green-white checkers of the season? I think it gets spicy. The benefit here at Texas is a lot of opportunity to overtake on these initial restarts, and we've seen that 3 wide on just about every single restart so far tonight. I think we're going to get our second green-white checkers.
Take a look at our top 9. Only 2 of those drivers up inside our top 9 qualified inside the top 10. Stafford qualified 2nd. Wesley Fuller qualified 7th. Everybody else qualified outside of the top 10. As a matter of fact, there's 3 drivers up here inside of our top 10 that weren't even inside of our top 15 at the drop of the green flag.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's been a long race and a long night, and a lot of drivers have just been sort of hanging on to things and trying to do what they can, but
Woodard has continued. Still on the lead lap in the 13th position. Patrick McQuaid, last car on the lead lap, still out there. 17th place is where he currently is situated.
Aaron Brown got back out.
Going to be up to speed. Yep, Aaron Brown 7 laps down right now in the 25th position. And getting ready here for overtime green-white checkered attempt. Matthew Rodriguez and Bronson Stafford, the Sky Motorsports teammates, line up on the front row. DJ Daniel and Christopher Lawrence in row 2. Tom Bourne and Matthew Fleming in the 3rd row. Green flag in the air. Can they make it back to the white is the big question. They're stacked up mid-pack there, but looks like they're all going to make it into turn 1 safely.
Yeah, Stafford really need to get himself a good start. DJ Daniels had a strong opportunity for a good start there. Now you'll watch DJ Daniels. He's going to get a huge run here. Stafford will go to the high line here for sure. He's got so much more grip. He'll clear him coming off this corner.
See Matthew Rodriguez just nothing through the center of the corner. Stafford able to get back to the throttle a lot sooner. They're going to make it back to the white flag. Drag race, give advantage to the 16. Here's Lawrence with a big run. What does he do? What does DJ Daniel do? Only a mile and a half left to go.
Kyle Gardner's up to 16th, and Mike Simonovsky's just in front of him. He's got a huge opportunity here.
3 wide, Tom Bourne with Christopher Lawrence and DJ Daniel. He sends it into 3.
And this was a huge opportunity for DJ Daniels. He's not going to come out on top. Race is running out. It's Stafford back to the line for a 3rd win on the season, Seth.
5 starts this year, 3rd trip to victory lane. That ties Aaron Brown for the most wins this season. And Bronson Stafford gets his 2nd straight victory at a mile and a half start. He'll get to burn it down here today at Texas in a 1-2-4 finish.
Is Daniels not happy with him?
Motorsports.
Is that DJ Daniels not happy with him? Because have a look at the attitude of DJ Daniels right around him. I get the feeling DJ Daniels is upset. DJ Daniels has made a lot of enemies in these playoff races. He cannot afford to make one out of Sky Motorsports.
DJ Daniels going to be the highest finishing playoff contender in 3rd place, which for the time being preserves his spot inside of the top 4 in the standings.
Maybe. Actually, you know what? Cam Caldwell will take the lead. Maybe. What's the gap between him and DJ Daniels? Only 2 points. So DJ Daniels going to lead the points.
Yes, you are correct. I believe 5 points over Christopher Lawrence. I think that's what the gap's going to be from 1st to 2nd. And Bronson Stafford, new color scheme for that number 16 Toyota. Big smoke show there for the fans.
He don't care. You don't need to take the regular way to pit road after you finish the race. No.
No.
Cut through it, baby.
Well, Bronson Stafford, it took him a while to get to the front of the field there. He led a few laps under green flag conditions when we had the cycle of green flag pit stops, but man, took until maybe like the last 5 laps before he eventually was up there in the race lead, running behind drivers like Trey Whitehead and Matthew Rodriguez for a majority of this race. Let's take a look at the finishing results for this evening's festivities, and not quite as many playoff contenders up inside the top 10 this week as there were last week, but still, DJ Daniel, as mentioned, going to be keeping himself up there inside the top 4 in the point standings. Tom Bourne, did he do enough here tonight to get himself a shot to maybe next week at Iowa be up there inside the top 4? He gets a top 5 run. Christopher Lawrence, he'll be up there in the top 4, back-to-back top 5s to start off the playoffs. Brock Whitehead bringing it home in 7th. Good comeback run there by Trey Whitehead, the pole sitter. Led the majority of the first half, really the first 2/3 of this race. Had an early issue and had to fight his way back up to a 9th place run. And Cam Caldwell there in 10th. I mean, right now, just eyeballing it, I think we're looking at the 12, 23, 9, and 33 up in those final 4 positions heading into Iowa.
Yeah, and the positions get a massive shake-up after last week, and I tell you what did they just say? What did they just say a couple laps ago? DJ Daniels inherits the lead? Uh-oh, DJ. You need to get, I don't think he's locked in by any stretch of the imagination. This has been the playoffs with the most jumps and falls every single step of the way, and we're only 2 weeks in. We're only at the halfway point of our first round of the playoffs. We've still got 2 races to go, and then there's Auto Club. Look, I'm looking at Auto Club at this stage of the season and just going, if I just look after the car and I don't die, I think I win the championship.
Take a look here at some of these guys that might have the big question marks on them of if they're still in contention. Alexander Kerfan outside the top 10, 11th. Noah Owens battled back for 13th, but he needed a lot more than that. Woodard back in 14th. Kyle Gartner, after the struggles he had early, I think he'll be pretty happy with a 15th place run and on the lead lap. McQuaid, the last car on the lead lap in 16th, and as you mentioned, kind of starting to put some strikes through drivers' names. Billiter 19th, Woods in 20th. They look like they may be out of the hunt for the championship at this point in time. Aaron Brown, big question mark there. Had a great run last week at Phoenix. Had the points lead coming into tonight. 7 laps down in 24th. Where is he positioned after this evening's all said and done? We'll have to wait and see. And you talk about DJ Daniel being the points leader going into Iowa. Well, the numbers aren't on his side either. Last season at Iowa, 16th place for the driver of the 23 cars. So we'll have to keep an eye and see if his luck will change one season later.
Going to have to do a huge turnaround effort, but I mean, he's going to be one of the drivers we get to talk to tonight. It's been so few podium finishes for DJ. It's been an irregular season in terms of the way that things have run for him. So I mean, this is only his 2nd podium of the season, to be perfectly honest with you, Seth, and only the 2nd time we've talked to him in the booth.
And we are about to do just that. Let's see if we can dial up tonight's 3rd place finisher, DJ Daniel. Hey DJ, Scott and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, kind of the tale of 2 races here this evening. First half of the race, long green flag run, saw 2 green flag pit stop cycles, but then it came down to late race cautions and late race restarts. It sent us into overtime. I mean, just how difficult was it to transition from being out there in relatively clean air, not having to deal with a whole lot of traffic, to all of a sudden having 6, 7, 8 cars all side by side in one big pack?
Man, it's a struggle. The car doesn't like to turn when you get in behind somebody, and yeah, I threw a Hail Mary. I just went 3 wide on the top, and it stuck somehow, but dirty air is rough. It's much better being out front.
I mean, we were just talking about point scenarios and the way that things have been played out. Next week, you're going to be working into Iowa and a short track with that number 1 tattooed above your head for the start of the race. 2 different guys have led the championship so far in the playoffs. Chris Woodard didn't have the race that he wanted at Phoenix. Aaron Brown finishes well down the points list tonight. Is it a concern now that you've got the target on your back?
It's definitely a little bit of pressure, but I can go in there with a pretty comfortable margin to the cut line, so hopefully everything goes well. Last time we ran at Iowa, I didn't run good, but hopefully we can bounce back and turn it around, finish up front.
So, was there a certain point here in the playoffs, a certain track that you kind of looked at as the one that was going to be setting up the battle when we eventually get to Kentucky to determine that Final Four? Was it here tonight at Texas? Is it next week at Iowa? Was it already finished up last week at Phoenix? Was there some place that you kind of just had circled as a place of get out of there with a decent finish?
I knew Texas was my shot. I've always been good here, and I felt like if I wouldn't have qualified so far back, I would have had a better shot, but it is what it is. I mean, we drove through the field like 4 different times, but yeah, I mean, Texas is one of my best tracks.
I picked up the most spots here this evening, up 20 positions from your 23rd starting spot to bring it home with a podium. Congratulations on a great run and also taking that playoff points lead into Iowa next week. We're now going to give you the opportunity, DJ, for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, I want to thank my dad, my grandma, everybody who supports me doing this stuff, and my sponsors, Agent NASCAR, Shadow Racing, Rebel, just to everybody, man. It feels good.
That's DJ Daniel, P3 here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway. Once again, congratulations and best of luck next week.
Yep, thank you.
Let's see if we can now get our second place finisher. So close to maybe picking up his first win on the season, but brings it home runner-up, another driver that had to fight his way through the field quite a bit here this evening. Let's talk with Matthew Rodriguez. Hey, Matt Rod, Scott, and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Howdy, yes.
Oh, man, we know that you're under the weather, fighting COVID, but also fighting out there on the racetrack. I mean, I made a point that you looked like one of 3 drivers that were the best on the long run, able to make the passes. The longer the run went on, the more worn the tires got. That thing was lightning fast, even on restarts as well. Take us back there to that last green-white checker. We know that you were fighting the fresher tires of Bronson Stafford, but if there's anything you could go back and do differently, would there have been something you could have done to keep that 16 in your rearview mirror for that last green-white checkered?
I would have adored him on that last restart. I knew that if there was any chance Bronson had new tires, there was no way I was going to hold him off in the last run. And I figured, hey, if we played games on the restart, that maybe I'd be able to get a little bit of room since it worked with Cam. It worked on the restart, but unfortunately Bronson had the fresh tires to really just power on the top. And unfortunately, about I think 2 to go or about on white flag, he got me right at the line, and I figured the only chance I would have is to send it into 1 and 2. And I did, and unfortunately he had more grip than me.
I mean, coming into tonight, Matt Rod, I mean, you know, it's probably just for you. This is just settling down and just having a bit of fun. I mean, you're underwear with COVID. It's been a little bit of a stressful week. I mean, Seth ran away from me on Wednesday night, so I had to cover Dark Horse with you. And I mean, we had a boatload of fun with that one. But you know, this is start of the weekend. You wanted to kick things off. You're not here. You don't have the pressure of a playoff scenario on your shoulders. And I mean, that Cookie Monster's down in second place. It's a great finish tonight, man.
Absolutely. I mean, I wasn't planning to run tonight. I didn't want to run tonight. At most, I really wanted just to start and park. But I'm in the best of the worst kind of fight here, and I looked at the points and realized I was third, and I was like, man, it would really suck if I didn't show up tonight because it looks like Vickery didn't even really start a lap. Wesley Fuller, he actually finished higher than I thought. He finished 8th. And then I'm here in 3rd, and everyone behind me is either not running or got a really bad finish today. So that's more or less the reason I came here, and I'm just happy that Texas ran so well. I did not expect that.
He definitely did run well, no doubt about that. Started back in 17th place, up 15 spots. We even documented the fact that he started this race from pit road and was making forward progress on that first long green flag run just before the first round of green flag pit stops. So congrats on a great performance here tonight, making it a 1-2 finish for Sky Motorsports. And now we're going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Absolutely. Obviously got to thank, you saw the sponsor on Stafford's car, Thompson Cat. They came on board. That's been a really cool partnership of being able to do kind of a childhood dream to have a Caterpillar in a car. So That was really cool. Steak and Shake, because they finally got back to me for sponsorship, and now I've got Steak and Shake sponsorship, so that's great. Um, Obviously, you guys for being here and doing the broadcast. Gotta love that. And I would have to say Tom Bourne to make sure that he didn't murder me when we got really dicey in 3-4 wide.
Hey, I'm gonna throw my my post race bonus under the bus and say, hey, you drove poorly tonight, man. You didn't do a good job whatsoever. I ain't gonna talk about you
Honestly,
because you paid me more.
I was hoping for like a Michael Jordan kind of flu game. Unfortunately, I just wasn't able to finish it.
Well, nonetheless, runner-up here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway for Matthew Rodriguez. Congrats on a good run there, Matt, and obviously hope you feel better as well.
Absolutely. Having us, I guess.
All right, let's go down to victory lane. 5 starts on the season. 3rd trip to victory lane. Got up to the front when it matters most. Let's talk with Bronson Stafford. Bronson, Scott, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Well, man, I mean, back-to-back victories at mile-and-a-half tracks now, including a couple of weeks ago at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But, I mean, we knew this 16 car was fast. You just didn't seem the entire race to have the track position. First half of the race, you're chasing the 33. At some points, you had the 54 ahead of you. And then here on these late race restarts, never really up there on that first row until the final restart. But man, it looked like the call to get those 4 fresh tires. That was the call of the race for sure.
Yeah, all race long, just Trey was really quick tonight. I would maybe gain a 10th or 2 over 10 laps. Like it was not. I was not going to be able to catch a 4-second gap without help. There just wasn't laps for it. But the yellow really kind of ruined that going for him. Unfortunately, he ended up getting like a penalty on pit road and had to start at the back and whatnot there. But yeah, getting the tires, I wasn't sure if it was going to be good or not. I was just going to do opposite of what Matt Rod did because he just stole the lead from me, kind of deal. So I was like, whatever, see what we do. And it kept getting more and more yellows, and I couldn't get I passed 1 or 2 cars and then a yellow, and it's just like it wasn't enough green laps. And then we finally got a stretch of like 3 laps, and I was able to start on the inside and pass like 4 people, and then just from there got to second. So we're able to roll, and then just the fresher tires in 3 and 4, you could see it. But yeah, it was a good night overall for the whole team. So.
I mean, we're looking at it and looking at the runs later on. It was a lot of it was where you positioned your car, and especially going into 1 and 2, because you're expecting the guys obviously to get tight through the middle of the corner and slide back up at the track. And it's about keeping yourself when you're in that sort of a situation. You're still trying to race as hard as you possibly can on the bottom side, but for you guys with the fresher tires, it's picking when to set up that run, because if you start the run too early, you have to check up before you get there, which means you lose the run. If you start the run too late, you don't get there in time, you can't steal the position away. So talk to us about what that's like, and particularly for the racing fans who don't drive.
No, you're 100% right. I'm not sure if you guys noticed it or not. I'm not sure like if you can see in the back, but pretty much I was just entering 1 and 2 higher on entry. That way, by the time I turned down and full throttled, they were already starting to slide up, and there was just a whole lane and a half, 2 lanes on the bottom just to get underneath of them. And at that point, it was so hard for them on the older tires to try and fight me in 3 and 4 as I'm able to full throttle, and they had to lift a little bit or it would run up the track more. So it really was just trying to back up more in 1 and 2, and then just hope they slide up and get under them. And most of the time they did. Just they feel. I think the biggest thing is you don't realize you're feeling the pressure, but you drive like you're feeling the pressure, and that's exactly what happens when you slide up more, because you're just missing your entry in the middle a little bit. But there's nothing you can really do about it. It's just how it works with racing, and it worked out in our favor tonight. So.
Bronson, I asked this of DJ Daniel earlier as well. In the early stages of this race, the field really spread out. The top 5 especially were really strung out. Not a whole lot of side-by-side battling going on there. A lot of opportunity for clean air until you guys would catch up to a little bit of traffic. And then caution comes out, everybody gets bunched up, and it's a complete 360-degree turn. You're battling in a pack. A lot of traffic side by side in front of you dealing with that dirty air. How difficult is it as a driver to transition from the clean air as much as you want to practically no clean air at all?
It's definitely a little jarring. When you do the first, 2/3 of a race under complete green, you're so used to what the car feels like after 2 laps, after 10 laps, after 20 laps in a full when you got the clean air and just lapping cars every now and then, compared to running 15 hard laps side by side kind of nonstop. So it's a little jarring, but as long as you can adapt and get used to it kind of quick, it usually pays off. And Trey did a good job with that too. It's just like I said, he got the black flag on pit road, and that really derailed his night. But yeah, it's jarring, but you get used to it pretty quick, especially once we kept getting the quick fire yellows. That's kind of what you had to get into the use of being into. So
Well, a great performance for you once again here, Bronson. Third win on the season, which now ties you with Aaron Brown for most so far here in season 2. And once again, very strong performance for you, but we didn't quite see that 16 up there at the front till the very end when it mattered the most. Congratulations on the victory here tonight. We're now going to turn the mic over to you for some thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
yeah, for sure. We got, obviously you guys with FRN. We always got you guys on the cars. New paint scheme this week. We just picked up Thompson, Tennessee cat dealership. So that's really cool. It's our second race with them on the car, and we were able to score a win. Unfortunately, not the best outcome yesterday in the Supra, but really good outcome tonight in the Camry. Obviously, you guys broadcasting, always a lot of fun. This one should be a good race to watch back with the green runs and the cautions and everything. I feel like it was a good little mix. So enough going on, and obviously the league putting it all together, putting it on. It was a lot of fun tonight. It's the mile and a halves have been very fun, hit or miss sometimes, but this one was fun. Vegas is fun, so I think everything's starting to click really good. And obviously, the whole Sky Motorsports team, they brought 3 really fast Camrys, and it showed with a first, second, and a fourth. So we'll hopefully maybe be back next week. We're on some momentum, so.
Well, Bronson Stafford's made 5 starts so far this season. 3 of them have ended up in victory lane, the most recent here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway. Congratulations on a great run, Bronson, and yeah, we see you next week. Best of luck at Iowa.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
So it looks like the updated point standings are in, heading
Yeah.
into that wild card race at Iowa. It's really interesting too that we end up having Iowa as that wild card race. A lot of times in playoffs we consider a super speedway as a wild card race, but there's no super speedway here in the playoffs. Iowa looming large right in the center, and EJ Daniel, points leader, 7 over Lawrence, 12 back to Cam Caldwell, 15 back to Trey Whitehead. Right now, that's your top 4. There's 14-point gap from Whitehead back to Kyle Gartner. So I know it's too early to say, especially with Iowa looming, but are we starting to maybe get a general picture already of who the Final 4 could be?
For sure. And look, I mean, you have a look at those point standings. The gap from DJ Daniels back to Trey Whitehead is 15 points. So ultimately, once you jump above that cut line, I think if anyone's got their eyes on someone right now and they're trying to catch and push their way into the playoff standings, in my mind, DJ Daniels basically has to not finish one of these next 2 races for him to drop out. It's a big mission because the first driver below that cut line is negative 29 points to DJ Daniels. Over 2 races, that's 14 points and 15 points. So effectively, 15 and 15 across the 2 races. So, that's a lot of spots that they've got to finish ahead of him. And for my mind, it's possible, but it's just not feasible. So DJ Daniels has got one hand into that Final 4. Phenomenal job for him. Everyone else, there's a big question mark over. Christopher Lawrence, I think the last 2 weeks, 4th and 5th, he's only had one finish slightly. So if you have a look at DJ Daniels the last 2 weeks, 5th and 3rd. Phenomenal job. 4th and 5th from Chris Lawrence. Perfect. That's exactly what you need to be doing when you step into the playoffs. Cam Caldwell, 1st, 10th. And that's pretty much the story when you look right the way throughout the field. The only difference is TJ Roberts, 6th last week. I think if he showed up tonight, I think we would have seen him on that verge of the top 5. And you want to know from me, Seth? I think TJ Roberts, if he was here, I think he'd be in. I think he'd be in the top 5.
Certainly had the momentum on his side. Had, I believe it was, 3 top 10s out of the last 4 races during the regular season. And, of course, had made his way into the playoffs late in that regular season finale at Las Vegas. To your point as well, DJ Daniel, Christopher Lawrence, right now, the momentum on their side, but you look at guys like Cam Caldwell and Trey Whitehead. We're going to a short track next week. 26 drivers took the green flag in last year's Iowa race. If these guys make a mistake, you've got Kyle Gartner in 5th down to Alexander Kerfan in 10th. Those guys are only separated by 15 points. You've got about 6 drivers separated by 15 points. If any of those guys make a mistake like Caldwell, Whitehead, even Lawrence, and fall outside of the top 4, there's a whole host of guys that would love to be able to get a good finish next week at Iowa, pick up the pieces, and move their way up into that top 4.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. And like I said, the big thing coming into tonight was there was a lot of drivers who had questions. I'm starting to get a clear picture of who's out. And for my mind, I said to you earlier tonight, I think Chris Woodard is done. You can't have a 22nd and a 14th place finish in my mind and make the playoffs. If he wins the next 2 races back to back, I change my mind. But literally, in my mind, the only thing that gets him in is win, and chaos for the other drivers. And I just don't think right now, with the way that things are playing out, he's good on the short runs. His pace there has been phenomenal, but he's falling by the wayside in terms of those tire wear races. So ultimately, Iowa breaks down a little bit into that. He's gone completely and utterly. There's no chance for him. What that does do is that gives us 10 drivers with a shot. The gap from Alexander Kerfan, who is in 10th, to Trey Whitehead sitting in 4th is, 29 points? That's doable. That is doable to get in. But again, it's got to be such a clear, concise finish. And Whitehead's been up, down. He's been all over the shot. Have a look at every single driver, bar the guys that are right up there. So DJ Daniels, Chris Lawrence, and Cam Caldwell. Those are the only 3 guys I think are a lock. Potentially, everyone else has got a bad finish. And that says to me, remember what I said, everything I said about Iowa earlier on in the piece, I think this championship is not over yet. I think that entire field gets shuffled at least once more. Will it be twice, though? That's the question.
I remember I mentioned here tonight in our finishing results, a number of the drivers up inside of the top 10 did not start this race up inside of the top 15, so it really wasn't all about track position here tonight. I guarantee you, a thing we will be talking about a lot next week is track position, because in last season's Iowa race, all of our top 5 finishers finished up inside, or started up inside of the top 5, so a lot of drivers going to be really trying to get their qualifying program down when we get to Iowa next week. Should be a good one, as you stated, should give us a very clear idea heading into Kentucky of who the final 4 drivers are going to be to compete for the championship at Auto Club. And that's going to be next week, with the green flag scheduled to fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Friday night. Scott, looking forward to that one. Been a great night here at Texas. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Yeah. Again, what a phenomenal race, Seth. It's on. This championship, I think, has become better the later we've gone in.
Absolutely agree. It's getting down to the wire here in the BackFire Sim Racing Cup Series. Bronson Stafford takes the checkered flag here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway, and we will see you guys next week at Iowa. Thanks for joining us here this evening. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.